place where so many of my dreams have come true.
The Ride with JMV on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
You know, I do dig this time of year. I got up really early this morning and watched the original The Fog. Not the one that was made in the 2000s, but the original. With when I was 8 years old, the love of my life was Adrienne Barbeau. And, of course, she is in that. And I watched Halloween 3 Season of the Witch from 1982, which is really sneaky good, but nothing like all the other Halloweens. And that's what I like to do when it is, of course, Halloween. Happy Halloween out there to everybody. The tricking and treating will be going on. Often people like to bring up to me, what did you do back in the day? Well, we did the normal stuff, right? Tricking and treating. But this time of year, we also threw corn at cars. I don't know who came up with the idea. It was called cornin. Not corning, but cornin. Cornin. And this is a true story, and this in no way, shape, or form would play out today. We would all go to jail. Everybody involved would be going to jail. But it was a completely different era. We did that, and it was always about to see who would get the gun out of their car, seriously, and shoot in the air. I don't know what we were doing. Soaping windows was a big deal back then. It was one thing to use, for example, like Irish Spring. But if you use paraffin, that means you were taking that thing up another notch. So things that we did leading up to and then on Halloween, tricking and treating. Cornin is what it was called. Cornin would get you a week's stay at least in the Who Scout nowadays. So don't do it. And I always got caught because I had a dog that followed me everywhere like Stinking Lassie, right? Like everywhere I went. Hey, there's John's dog. John's dog's here. So it was easy. You look up at a field with your spotlight, like you're spotlighting deer or something back in 1981, and hey, there's John's dog. So he must be there. Happy Halloween, everybody. A lot to talk about. I was really bummed last night. I was really bummed, and I actually got to watch the Pacers game. But I was bummed watching it. And granted, a lot of the same issues that we have seen in those first two games, but we were euphoric in those first two games because they came out as winners. However, last night, not so much. And they lost to a team that had been blown out by Detroit and lost their opener and then had a team meeting afterwards. I mean, all ridiculous stuff. And then if you're the Pacers, you come off a weekend, a nice win on the road in Cleveland. Then you get back here and your defense still stinks. And you turn the ball over 17 times. And you can't shoot it. You shoot a high volume of threes and then have a high volume of misses from distance. And I don't know about anybody else, and I know what you're going to tell me. That's just JMV and his love affair with T.J. McConnell. But jacking around last night, if you're Rick Carlisle, and not going to get T.J. McConnell off the bench, I thought that cost you. Yeah, I know he's not going to shoot the three ball better, but better decisions he wouldn't make. And I love Andrew Nembhard. Andrew Nembhard didn't have it last night. Andrew Nembhard turned the ball over 6 times of the 17 times it was turned over. That's the moment, just like Saturday night. You're going to see moments where McConnell is valuable. And I know a lot of jackasses out there look at it as, well, you know, I've looked at the analytics here, and you know what? Screw your analytics. That's the effect he has on the floor and with this team. And it's necessary. It was necessary last night, and Rick didn't call his number. Rick needed to call his number last night. Oh, that wasn't the biggest difference in the game. Well, you don't know that. And I'm not trying to, again, stand in the way of the maturation of Andrew Nembhard. I love Andrew Nembhard, but last night wasn't it. You needed the McConnell factor. And you know what? Oftentimes you are. What has been the most common word used about the start of the season for the Pacers? I mean, hell, it's Halloween. Depth. Utilize that depth. If you see, and it is clear that somebody doesn't have it, then yank them and see if you can find somebody within your depth that does. Now, I don't know. Maybe that makes people unhappy. I don't know why Rick Carlisle would really care. I mean, you're the coach trying to win games. But I thought that was a major miscalculation. Yeah, almost it's like what we talked about with Shane Steichen yesterday. Yeah, don't try to outthink yourself here. All right, so everybody around here believes that you're Johnny Football and you know everything offensively. And I am a believer in the future of Shane Steichen. But as we talked about yesterday with Stephen Holder, and I brought this up yesterday, it appears that Shane Steichen will often outthink himself. And that's what happens oftentimes when you believe that you're the smartest guy in the room. I believe there's many a room where Chris Ballard believes himself to be the same thing. And we saw 6 years of how that worked out. So just go with what you know. It's like when you build a team. Just go, look around you a little bit. You're not trying to reinvent the wheel. You're trying to go with what is better. I mean, if you stumble upon something, some unique form of football that nobody has ever uncovered, then great. But oftentimes, you're just trying to put together a team and a group of personnel when basically they're doing the same damn thing as everybody else is doing out there. You just have to do it better. You have to do it exclusively better and consistently better. Sometimes you get caught up in that. Last night was a McConnell game. And McConnell was not there or not called upon. And that is an issue. Now, granted, we're talking about NBA before Halloween. Here's the other aspect. Something happened last night that is profoundly much worse than losing to a armpit-led region viewing coming down here to watch the Bulls crapola game to Chicago last night from a Pacers standpoint. It is having your product, and I don't even care if your product was really stinking it up oftentimes last night. You have to have this product viewed. It can't be the world's biggest pain in the ass for most, for many, for half, for some. Like, this is what I got told. I got the pro and the con to it. And obviously, I'm going to hear from everybody that's screaming and yelling. You know, everybody out there that has cut the cord and gone to something else, everybody out there. And listen, at times, I wish I were you, especially at the end of every month when I'm carving out a $200+ check to DirecTV. I don't even know where this thing goes now. I go, wait a minute. I watch 3 stinking channels here. I have it for sports and MeTV, which I can get with rabbit ears. Now, why am I paying this much? So it's not like I'm talking about DirecTV as being better. I've said that all your content providers have significant warts. Like, I haven't seen Wish TV Channel 8 because I have DirecTV in like 5 years. I have no idea if Anthony Calhoun still actually exists. Did Mike Ahern retire? I have no idea. None. I haven't seen it in 5 years. It's gone off of DirecTV, thus I don't see it. And I do. I've said this before. If I'm going to pay money, and you feel the same way, if we're going to pay money, we want those options. And I'll be damned if I want to have to work at watching it. I've always said this, and I've said this about us before too. So before you start saying, well, you're in radio and look what you guys did. You guys know me. You know where I was. I want the easiest, most convenient way to get everybody. And oftentimes, it is your smartphone. It is an app. It is a stream today. But that's not every time. And we don't live in New York. We don't live in L.A. or Atlanta or Chicago to where 5G or great uninterrupted internet is readily available. We'll get to the IHSAA doing this streaming job in a second. I mean, think about that. Southern Indiana trying to tune in to the 2A championship game, and all of a sudden, you get this little thing that goes round and round because your internet sucks where you are in a rural area. That's problematic. I have always handed out the advice, oftentimes it's not been heeded, but I've handed it out. You have to make it incredibly easy for everybody. It's like running a club. It's like the JMV takeover. Everybody gets in. Doesn't matter. Everybody gets in. Everybody gets on the air. Everybody gets their request in. Everybody gets out of this experience what they want. The reason why they sought out that experience in the first place. And I understand that we have to jump on the technology bandwagon and ride off into the future, but you can't so easily forget your past. You cannot leave people behind. Again, this is a small market. People at times will just simply go away, and you don't make up for those folks. That's problematic. And I've seen that around here before, and I know what they tell me about numbers, and that is fair. They're much smarter than I am. My bosses are way smarter than I am, but they're not out there with me every day. I hear from actual people, so I know I knew. But we got on that bandwagon, we marched off. That was back in a different era and a different company who, I want to say some stuff right now, and I'm not going to. Thank you, James. Anyway, they got out of it. So we rode off with a different company that I love very much, that loves local radio and what it means to you. And if there's anything you know me about being, I am local radio as hell. I would not work anyplace else. I am a Betamax in a VHS world. And I'm like your dad in 1980 who bought up all the Betamax tapes. And then all of a sudden there's VHS. And you're going, well, wait a minute. I completely understand that. But what I am also is equal opportunity. I let everybody in. I want everybody in. I don't want to leave anybody behind. Especially when we're concentrating on the future. And that's exactly what you don't want to do right now if you're the Pacers. You want everybody readily available and easily available to view your content. Now, frankly, I could tell you right now, to us, why should it care, right? Because we have the radio rights. You can just listen to the radio. That's fantastic. Mark Boyle's got you. Eddie Gill, Pat Boylan, Eddie Garrison. That's fantastic. But when you ask me and stuff like last night happens, I'm going to give you my honest opinion. And my honest opinion last night was that the fiasco with Bally Sports and the lack of coverage and content that you got for that game last night was much worse than an October loss to the Bulls. There's not even a competition. Much worse. And therein lies the issue. When it becomes difficult, when it becomes a chore, you guys work your ass off 8+ hours a day. I get it. And I've been there and done that. I know. That's why I'm so happy I grew up the way that I did, because I've done stuff in the country that I didn't want to do forever. But, like changing tires was not going to be my future, but I did it. And I know how hard the work can be. Now I sit here and I just yip-yap all day. Nothing really hard about that. But I know where a lot of you are right now. And the last thing you want is the complication of coming home and going, I really want to see this Pacer team. They're winners of 2 straight to start the season. Got some new faces. They play up-tempo. They're the leading scorer after 2 games of the NBA. They're averaging 130+ per guy. Got to see this. And granted, it wasn't a great product on display. But that part doesn't matter, because you'll make your choice. Then you want to watch it, and then you can form your opinion. But the first thing you have to be able to do is view it. And it can't be that much of a hassle. And for those last night that have cut the cord, that were trying to view regarding the app, It was way too much of a hassle, and I'm telling you, that's dangerous territory because a lot of folks will go, screw this. I'm not going to give this place another dime. Well, wait a minute, JMV. It's not the Pacers. It's Bally Sports, and they're in bankruptcy. They're the ones that fouled it up. Did you look around the NBA? Others that had Bally Sports also had significant issues of getting dialed in and watching their favorite team. However, nobody around here gives a blank what happens in Oklahoma City. Nobody around here cares what happens anywhere else but right here. And the problem the Pacers have with this is it is going to be on their shoulders, even if they have no fault. You expect them to go out and do something. Well, it's really expensive to put together your own thing like they did in Houston with the Astros and the Rockets, with Space City Network or whatever the hell that is. It's really difficult to do that, right? Really expensive. People around here are not going to want to care. You have multi-millions upon millions of dollar athletes, multi-million-dollar organization, a professional sports team, cobble out a direction and find a way. And that may not be the right answer at all. I'm certain it is much more complicated. However, that's what is going to be the form of opinion in that court of public opinion every single time. All right, Pacers, this is your fault. And you know what? If you're not going to jack with this, neither am I. So last night was much worse with the Bally fiasco than it was the Pacers and how they looked against the Bulls. I don't know who's going to swing in here on a chandelier and save the day for you guys out there. I don't know if I would cross my fingers and count on that being the bankrupt company that provides the content. The Pacers have themselves a major issue. And again, I bring it up, and I'll tell you, I would rather, for the seat that I'm in and what I do, I would rather you listen to the radio. But you call upon me daily to answer these questions, form opinions, and maybe sometimes have some answers. And my only answer here is that the Pacers need to figure this out and do it ASAP. You know, before this, it was kind of a funny little joke. It was like me with DirecTV and you with your Xfinity or, you know, others that have cut the cord and you're laughing at me because I'm paying like $200+ a week and I had to reroute my 77-year-old mom. Seriously, my mom loves Pacers games. And she was with Dish Network and they jacked around, don't have it anymore. And she lives way out where I grew up in a rural area in Greene County. And her internet most of the time sucks really bad. So I thought there is no way in the world we can cut this cord. I mean, I know she does sit around and watch like Yellowstone and all this stuff. But oftentimes it stops and it clicks and it drags and it tries to refresh and nothing happens. And you know who gets that call? Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. You know who gets that middle of the night call? Well, I don't know what my Amazon Prime is doing here. And I go, well, you know what? It's 3:30 in the morning. I don't either. A lot of people like that. A lot of people in rural Indiana. And the IHSAA is going to find out the same thing. It is okay to move off into the future, but it is also okay and the right move not to forget about the past. Got to make sure, as hard as you can try, that you take everybody with you. This is not a market like New York or Philly or D.C. or Atlanta that you can just replace the viewership with two more. It's not like the NFL. Like the NBA is not like the NFL to where, I mean, hell, you could put a product on the Hallmark Channel and all of a sudden the Hallmark Channel will be a top 5 network because everybody lusts after that product, after that content, no matter what it is. You know, really, there are very few things that do that for you outside of the NFL and Taylor Swift. And from what I hear, Morgan Wallen, I don't know what else does that for you. But you have to be sure as best you can. And again, I'm not against moving into the future. I'm not at all, because you're going to have to. Like, I don't use a rotary phone. But if there's somebody out there that did and does, I would still want them listening to my radio show. You still want them watching Pacer games. You still want your IHSAA Championship Network content available. And that can put you in a trouble area. It's a delicate balance. Now, it's more of a delicate balance moving forward with the IHSAA. We'll talk to Greg Rakestraw about that and more coming up here at the bottom of the hour, because they're just embarking on this journey. But, you know, the Pacers are here right now, and no Pacer fans, like, hitting me up on X, formerly known as Twitter, and saying, well, you know, I kind of understand this because this happened everywhere else or 17 other places around the NBA. You know what they say to me? They say, screw the Pacers, I'm not watching because they're not giving me a chance. They cost me $20 a month. It is on them. You are firmly blaming them. They have to do something about it. It may not at all be their issue, but this falls upon their shoulders. Got to do something. And I'm telling you, the longer you drag your feet, the more people will not be able to soak up your product. And you are missing a golden opportunity. Even with that crap fest, most of the game last night, and the way that they lost to the Bulls. I mean, seriously. It's the only way the armpit even goes to an NBA game is to come down 65 here and BO up Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Then you lose to that mess. But still, the biggest mess last night was that of those that were trying to tune in for the first time. Maybe didn't have much interest in Monday Night Football. Didn't have any interest in World Series Game 3. You wanted to see the Pacers, and you wanted to see for the first time what all the talk was about. And it was not just disappointing. You know what? Crap, I missed that. Darn it. That's disappointment. You were mad last night. That has a much longer lasting effect. We can talk about that at 239-1070 if you so desire. Hey, this is a really magical day for where we are in the NFL with the Colts right now. This is, I wonder who the Colts can trade that is good for a fifth-round pick that will get cut once camp ends next year. This is a very special day for us all. Who can they trade for a third-day pick? If I have to hear third-day pick again, I will seriously vomit before all of you inside the lounge via YouTube Live. I don't know why. I don't know how you get so wound up with, oh, my God, third-day picks. It's great. Sure, I mean, you may hit on one or two. You know how many you miss on? Like, if I have to hear how great, like Darius Rush right now, according to a lot of people, is going to end up going down in history as one of the great, like Champ Bailey. He didn't even make it out of camp here. I don't even know if he plays. One of these days, it will get back to what I found as a sense of normalcy. And that is, you're never really worried about this. Never really worried about it. You know, you're in there, you were competing, you were being successful. We weren't talking about late round draft picks and, you know, how you can trade. Well, this guy has little value in the future, so if you trade him and maybe get a couple of war chest picks for the future, yeah, great. So much trust that that's going to transition into something really good. And then you guys, I'll end up getting like one, well, I told you so. And I'll give you like 10 of, well, also this. Yeah. NFL trade deadline has become something incredibly special around here. And is just a part of the unfortunate losing epidemic that we have been a part of. Everybody playing fantasy football. Well, here's what we could do with this fifth rounder. What about this sixth rounder for Zach Moss? You know what I care about a sixth rounder? Zero. None. I'll tell you what, worry about hitting on your second rounders. Worry about that. We're worried about the 6-rounders when you can just carve out even a modest amount of success. We're ready for that. Very special day it is around here, the NFL trade deadline. Look at the Niners. The Niners act like the NFL, they have no worries whatsoever. We want everybody. Chase Young, come on in. Pretty amazing. And hell, they've lost 3 consecutive. It's not like things are great out inside the fly at Levi's right now. All right, quick break and we shall return. Who's on this show today? Brett Spielberger, 4 o'clock hour. Ooh, numbers. See what the numbers look like. See what the analytics, what type of portrait that paints for a 3-5 team. We'll do that with Brad Spielberger of PFF coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. Kravitz going to be here too? Hey, James, what's your favorite horror movie before we hit a break here?
The Thing.
Oh, the John Carpenter one?
Oh, yeah, with Kurt Russell.
That's a good one, too.
Great movie.
I like it when that guy's head turns into a spider.
Oh, yeah. You've got to be effing kidding.
That's beautiful, baby. That's beautiful. They're all tied to that couch. Let me off this couch. One of my favorite guys of all time, I believe, is in that Keith David. Is that the actor,
yeah.
Keith David?
Keith David. He's great. He's Childs or something is his name.
Keith David, I believe, the actor, was also behind the bar in a limited role in Roadhouse.
Oh, really?
And one of the great, very hilarious, under-the-radar films of the very late 1980s would be Men at Work with Emilio Estevez and Charlie Sheen. And Keith David is their superior in that and is, I think, incredibly hilarious. Also, Something About Mary, right? He's married to Marky Post, who was Cameron Diaz's stepdad, and he was the Franks and the Beans. How'd you get the beans above the Frank?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, when Ben Stiller got his weenus caught in his zipper. You don't remember that?
I don't think I've ever actually seen that movie.
What? Keith David, everybody. I believe that's who I'm talking about. If it's not, you can correct me a little bit later. All right, quick break. We'll come back. Greg Rakestraw is going to join us, too. What a weekend, actually. Friday night of football. We got another one coming at you. Sectional final Friday night. This Friday night. Greg, with that, and we're getting closer and closer to the start of the basketball season. Greg's going to be here with all that and more inside the lounge via YouTube Live, brought to you by Win Schuler Spreadable Cheeses. The spreadability is real inside the lounge. Watch, view, participate. Win Schuler's Spreadable Cheeses Lounge. Stream the app, HD Radio. Hey, listen, I invite there's a reason why I say this every day. I want as many people as possible by as many ways and means as possible. I want to make it easy. 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
1075 The Fan.
The Ride with JMV.
Two,
93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
They did the Monster Mash. It was a graveyard smash. It caught on in a flash.
Do I keep turning that off? What button am I hitting here? Come on, this is my first time on the radio. Hey, JMV, you forgot Keith David in the 80s cult classic They Live with the late, great Roddy Piper. Indeed, I did. How'd you get the Franks over the Beans from 1990 right there, Keith David? If you're on hold, I'll get to you on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Our good friend Greg Rakestraw joins us on this Halloween 2023. What are we doing with the fam tonight, Greg?
Well, unfortunately, I've got one on the DL, so I spent a good chunk of my day yesterday. My beloved Jackson broke a small bone in his foot yesterday, so he will be passing out candy with me. Mia will be dressed in a costume that she made herself, which, as you know, her is not a surprise.
Yes.
She is going as a Viking goddess, stealing and plundering candy all throughout Broadway.
That's awesome. Well, hey, give my best to Jack. That stinks right there. But give my best. You guys just sit around. Like, what do? Do you hand out 2 and eat 1? Hand out 3, eat 2, kind of like that? Because that's exactly what I'd be doing.
I try to hand out as many as I can. It's my diet plan. The more people eat, the less I do, the better. My kids like to collect candy, and then it sits there and gets dust. So I will actually re-gift the candy they have already gotten from like other sources. Of course, the Butterfingers and Reese's Cups have been picked over by me already. And then the candy they bring back in, again, the Reese's and Butterfingers go to me, and everybody else will just, give to Goodwill or something like that.
I am a big fan of the Reese's Cup, too, but I love the miniatures from Hershey, the Mr. Good Bar. So I guess I dig me some nuts. Seriously, I love Mr. Good Bar.
From time to time, John. I think we've all thought about it over the years. But I could subsist. In fact, I love
my nuts. I do. I love my nuts.
Butterfingers.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. All right. Tell me a little bit about what's going on here. And I know that the IHSAA, they've, for a long time, because you've been a part of it, especially on the Champions Network, you've been doing all these things via stream. So is this going to be, starting this year, solely stream and no more TV options? Is that what we're looking at here, Greg?
That is correct. And I'm not sure if that's the permanent solution. Perhaps it is. Let's face it, seemingly things are going more and more online as we speak. But so many of these championships have been online for 15 years, but there have been television offerings, especially in football and both basketballs and volleyball, baseball and wrestling, and even softball used to be, kind of a Bally Sports offering. So now everything will be funneled through IHSAATV.org, and as is seemingly everything in terms of IHSAA championships or even like semi-state rounds, which have been exclusively online for the last few years, it's one price to get one game. It is a minimal add-on to just get everything. But, the first kind of championship that had been a television championship for the last several years that will not be is this weekend in volleyball. So this is kind of the start of it. But obviously football, coming up on Thanksgiving weekend, will all be online.
I'll make sure that we get this right and frame this up accurately, because I'm the one saying this. There are going to be a lot of people that hate the absolute hell out of this.
I understand. I get it. It's my job to broadcast and
yes,
in this case, not distribute. So as someone that works in the production business, tries to find television outlets when possible, I understand that sentiment. So
well, and I know that you understand it, Greg, from my standpoint, because we both grew up in a very small town, rural area. And you're going to get a lot, maybe some in 1 and in 2A, maybe in 3A, that come from areas where, your signal in which the way you get it is not robust. Like where my mom is, for example, it is an absolute struggle. She could never really cut the cord. So I think you start right there and see if you follow me on this. I understand we all have to go to the future, and this is all going to be the future. And I'm not so much going kicking and screaming as I am just allowing, I think, for a moment of clarity to suggest to everybody involved that this is fine, but just give people as many options as you can, because they can't, we can't, you can't, the Pacers can't. It's really only the NFL and Taylor Swift that can, we can run some people off because there's 3 more waiting. We, they, us can't afford this, and this is what I think is so problematic about a move as such.
I understand where you're coming from, and again, this is where I say I'm one that broadcasts the game, not chooses the distribution of said game. So,
well, I think John Griffin's going to sprint down the hall in about 5 minutes and probably tell me to be quiet, but I just got to think in all forms, you've got to ease into this. And maybe you can suggest they have over the years because they've offered this.
I would say they have, and at some point in time, that decision was going to get made to kind of cut the cord in this case. And, there had frankly been a pretty nice package put together by Bally Sports Indiana for these games to be on that platform. And when that went away, the IHSAA made the move at that time to say, you know what, let's make this an online-only package. So I would imagine that all feedback on this subject will be welcomed, and perhaps at the end of the school academic calendar, perhaps maybe a different path might be visited. Maybe not. I don't know.
I think it will need to be, but listen, we've been friends for a long time, so I don't want to put you in a bad spot on this. So I'll save my heavy criticism for a little bit later on in the show, which is obviously coming regarding that. But we can talk about sectional Friday night in football, how that thing looks coming up this Friday, Greg.
I'm looking forward to Cathedral and Lawrence North. That is my game of the week on TV 23, as well as the IHSAA Champions Network as well on that. Last year I had Cathedral and Lawrence Central in terms of a sectional final, and Cathedral, I think, was 2 or 3 touchdowns better, if memory serves. I expect this one to be a little bit closer. Cathedral's been playing some pretty good football, and because they had a couple of early losses, we have not talked that much about the Irish this year. So, they're a team that could make a sneaky run, but they would have a dastardly finishing kick if they do. If they can get past Lawrence North, they're likely looking at a path of Ben Davis, Center Grove, and as I would say, whoever wins the Hamilton County tournament of the 4 Hamilton County 6As that are left between Fishers, HSE, Westfield, Noblesville. You get a kid like Danny O'Neill, it's possible. On the flip side, John, Lawrence North has great talent and skill positions. They're also young in terms of their front seven. They've only got 1 senior. They're very much a playmaking defense. LN very much has a chance to win this game. But what they can't do is make big mistakes. They got to take care of the football. So I think Cathedral's the favorite in the game that I've got, but it's not in the realm of possibility that LN could win their second football sectional in the last 30 years if they were able to get a W on Friday night.
Greg, I want your incredible breakdown of what in the hell happened with Brownsburg and Ben Davis this past Friday night. That was about as wild as they come, I guess.
Being the person that was there and on the television call, I do not think this is a case of Brownsburg giving the game away. I think there was the 1 turnover, and a great play was made by Mark Zachary. It's probably a throw the quarterback would like to have back, because he literally had played a perfect game up until that point. Ben Davis had picked up some momentum. They get that pick 6, and John, in the span of about 20 seconds, they go from 3 scores down to a 5-point game, and everything just tilted in Ben Davis's factor. I will also agree with something Cal Nedrip wrote in the Indianapolis Star the last couple of days, and that is the return of Nylan Brown for Ben Davis was huge. He's going to play in the Mid-American Conference as a linebacker. I frankly think, and no offense to any of the MAC schools, I think he can play at a higher level. The last time he played was against IMG, and I did that game in Week 4, and he was probably the second best defensive player on the field that day, behind a young man who will play defensive end for Oklahoma. That had a pick 6. He's 6'4", 280, and took it 95 yards. Nylan was in big part responsible for them that night, shutting down a running game that had offensive linemen of 280 yards or 280 pounds or more, and a running back from Texas. That being said, Garrett Sherrill had 167 yards for Brownsburg. He's one of the best running backs, if not the best running back in the state. I thought Nyland Brown being back defensively was massive for Ben Davis. But I just think it was kind of the stars aligned, and Ben Davis just kept battling. A lot of teams would have packed it in and down 25-7. Ben Davis didn't. They had a couple of chances to do that, and they didn't, and it came out in their favor.
So Greg Rakestraw with us. Before I let you go, and I mean, you can speak to this because I'm sure you've covered so many different scenarios, and in fact, there may be others that I'm not going to bring up right now, but we talked about Brownsburg and Penn Davis and just how much of a bummer that is for Brownsburg considering the type of season and expectations in the postseason they had. And, you know, I look at 5A at Bloomington North, who was number one a lot of the season, you know, having a team and a season unlike we have seen down on Bloomington's north side forever. They had beaten their crosstown rivals early in the regular season and then unceremoniously ousted by those same Bloomington South Panthers this past Friday night. That stinks because you're getting a lot of people are going to go, you know, even in a great season, you're going to look at that and say that final loss outweighs the success that program went through over the course of the 2023 campaign.
And I'm not sure I've got a good counter to that. I understand. In Bloomington North's case, you know, they can point to that undefeated season, that conference championship, because there have not been many or if any of those over the years at Bloomington North. And I knew that getting past South a second time was going to be very difficult for them. But the fact that they put an and-O on their record of the regular season, that's a big stinking deal. And it's going to hurt now. It's going to hurt for the rest of this year. It's going to hurt maybe for a couple of years. But they will look back at that season with a great deal of pride as well. They should. For the Brownsburg folks, what I would say is this. I think a lot of people expected their team to be a lot closer to 500, given what they lost off of last year's team. And the fact is, they won the best league in the state, and they did so in undefeated fashion in winning the Hoosier Crossroads Conference. So, again, there is something to be said for being 9-0, and in their case, 7-0 in their league. And the other thing I would add to it is this. It wasn't like either one of those two teams were beaten by chumps the first round of the tournament. They were beaten by teams that were ranked third in the state. They just had the unfortunate luck of the draw and the unfortunate luck of geography. They had a great team in their own backyard that just happened to get them when they played the first week of the tournament.
All right, where are you again coming up on Friday?
Cathedral at Lawrence North is my game of the week, and looking forward to it.
It's going to be a good time right there. All right, enjoy Halloween with the fam later on tonight, and we'll catch back up. I'm assuming on Saturday, too. We only have three JMV takeovers until Christmas music hiatus.
Do we have a theme for Saturday?
No, we'll do 80s. But the Twilight Zone thing worked great. Did you hear both? Golden Earring and Two Unlimited?
I was absolutely in the car. And the first one, when I told Amy, because, you know, this is like a family meeting about what we're going to ask for on JMV show every week, I told her I was going to request Twilight Zone, and she goes, "Oh, I love Golden Earring." And I go, the one I was talking about. And it hit me. I'm like, hey, that might make for a good double shot power. So that half, the 80s idea was Amy. The early 90s, that's all me. So it was a Rakestraw family entree in the JMV takeover.
And I also love the way Sammy Terry says double shock power, which is awesome.
Very, very Don King of him to say double shock power. Yes.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate you.
See ya.
Have a great Halloween. Greg Rakestraw on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Trace Jackson Davis, 13-9. Actually, we thought he had a double-double last night for Golden State. Golden State 130-102 in New Orleans over the Pelicans, but evidently the statistician took a rebound away, so 13-9 for Trace last night in his debut for the Golden State Warriors. First points on the board for Golden State. Actually, he threw one off the glass to himself and then threw it down. So good for Trace last night. Steph Curry had 42 in that game. What's odd, when you look at it, they put up 130. Curry had 42, and I don't think anybody else had over 13. Credible for performance. And unlike the Pacers, which was not, Rick Carlisle made a mistake. That was a T.J. McConnell Monday night at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. There are going to be points in this season where you are going to need him. You saw that on Saturday night against the Cavaliers, and you saw it last night too, and he didn't get his number called. That was detrimental And just face it, if you disagree with me, you might as well get right and agree, because if you do agree with me, we're all accurate. There are going to be moments when he is necessary. Last night was one of those. Quick break, and we'll return. If you're on hold, I'll get back to you. Spielberger from PFF regarding the numbers coming up here in the 4 o'clock hour and the NFL trade deadline, where Colts fans get to celebrate. The nerds in the Colts audience, the fantasy football players, get to talk about late-round draft selections, third-day draft picks. You get to rejoice. This is your favorite day. You have a team that stinks, and you want to trade off good players for guys that are going to get cut in July. Awesome. What a great day it is for everybody. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
And 107.5 The Fan.
The Ride with JMV.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Somebody requested this on Saturday night on the Halloween Party JMV Takeover from Ghostbusters 2, Bobby Brown. What is it? Too hot to handle, too cold to hold. Call the Ghostbusters because they're in control. Is that the lyric? You know over there, James? Am I getting that right, or am I
mean, that sounds right, but
misremembering the lyric like many times we all do?
I'm far more familiar with the first Ghostbusters than I am
Ray
with
Parker Jr., who got, I think he got sued by Huey Lewis and the News because a lot of that sound was exactly like I Want a New Drug. Did you know that?
I did not.
I don't even know how much money he got for that, to be honest. I don't know if it was like the Verve. Remember the Verve came out with Bittersweet Symphony, and basically they copied a sample, the Rolling Stone song, and it's like the Rolling Stone, like Mick Jagger doesn't need that money, right? But they went out and basically sued their ass anyway and got it. So I don't think the Verve made a dime out of Bittersweet Symphony. True story. You want anything else? All right, a lot more for you besides that on this Halloween. Happy Halloween to you. 5 o'clock hour. Kravitz is going to be here. And we get Spielberger from PFF coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. Trade deadline, some moves going on. Montez Sweat traded out of Washington, and Chase Young goes to San Fran out of Washington. Yeah, Chris Ballard, get on the phone and see if you can't pry away Terry McLaurin right now. Would you, Ballard? Let's go. Come on. Ballard, are you there? See if you can't pry him out of that. If it's a fire sale like that, they're getting rid of everybody. To see if, hey, call and say, hey, what about this guy? Hometown, unique, wide receiving talent, beat us a year ago. That guy. Where are you? Where are you, Ballard? Pacers lose last night, but losing to the Bulls was just an appetizer. Not being able to be viewed by so many who are outraged and not blaming Bally Sports as much as they're blaming the Pacers, that is bad business right there. J-Law is at 239-1070. J-Law, welcome to the show. Hello, J-Law. I don't hear J-Law. You got J-Law up over there?
Hey, here you go.
There you go, J-Law. What's up, brother?
Hey, sorry about that. How you doing, buddy?
Fantastic. Thank you for asking.
Hey, the whole streaming thing, what bothers me is I've got a 90-year-old mom who was volunteer at high school sports for 40-plus years. She has no idea how to log on and sign up for these things. And she loves sports. And I just feel bad for these folks that in remote areas or the elderly that are on limited incomes and have to pay for every nickel and dime to watch something. Just like, the Big Ten Network got a huge television package, but they want to charge me $10 a month to watch exhibition games.
Yeah, and we knew we were all going here too, and that's why I said you've got to find a way to. I understand, J-Law, you got to go to the future. We all may be doing it kicking and screaming, but we have to go to the future technology-wise. But you cannot, especially around here. This is not like New York. You can afford to leave people behind if you're in a big market like that. You can afford to leave people behind if you're the NFL, because you will just cultivate more. But around here, that doesn't happen. You need absolutely everybody in. You need everybody that wants to be in on the radio and can easily tune into this. I don't need to make it hard. It can't be a pain in the ass to do it, and it can't be a pain in the ass to watch a Pacer product that a lot of people are talking about, but some are still apprehensive about getting involved with right now. That was just bad business last night. And even if it's not the Pacers' fault, everybody out there is going to believe the multi-million-dollar professional organization is going to be the one at fault.
Right. And, it's just one of these things where they're pricing themselves out ticket-wise for the average family to attend in person. And they're going to get to a point where people can't afford all the streaming services because I've lost count how many I subscribe to now.
Yeah, we're all over the map, buddy. Appreciate you. As always, you know that, J-Law.
Yeah.
Hopefully I see you later on this week. GG's, Northeast Side, 71st in Benford, coming up on Friday.
Will do.
See you there, buddy. And coaches with Larceny Bourbon Locks and Luna Azul Tequila Shots Thursday downtown. Corey Kitty says, we all know there's zero chance Ballard does anything. You know what? I want him not to do anything. I just don't want to have to hear the phrase late round draft pick for Zach Moss. I don't want to have to hear the phrase 6th round pick for Zach Moss, a guy that's not going to make it out of camp. I don't want to have to hear about third-day draft selection. I don't want to hear any of that crap. That is, now it is, to me, I view that as such a stinking loser mentality. It drives me nuts. It's almost like it's half a season every year now, and you get halfway through, and then you move on and you want to start talking about mock drafts. So I'm okay if that doesn't happen. Yet regardless. Quick break, we'll come back. Spielberger is going to crunch some numbers.
It's all 7 a.m. on the Fan.
The Ride with JMV. 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Hey, welcome back. Hour 2. Brad Spielberger in just a second from PFF. True story. How many of you, especially you Generation Xers I'm talking to out there, how many of you back in, what would have been, 1980, I think it was early 84, late 83, let's say 1984, how many of you rolled a VHS tape on MTV, and I still have it around here someplace too, where you just hoped you ended up taping this video? Anybody else do that besides me? I'm telling you, I've got original programming somewhere, along with S118 stuff, along with American Triple Ecstasy stuff, where I just hit record and went to bed. I got a lot of that stuff. But for that video, definitely. And I'm assuming a lot of you Generation Xers did the same thing that I did to prioritize watching the incredibly awesome, lovely Ola Ray walk around in that video. And did you know, James, did you know this? I still have my Michael Jackson Thriller jacket.
Oh, really?
It does not fit.
Oh.
But I still have it that I purchased at the merry-go-round in the Lafayette Square Mall in 1984. And I'll send out a picture later on. I wore, and you can see me holding a bunch of shooting trophies because I shot the stinking lights out back in the day, holding a bunch of trophies at my basketball spring banquet, rocking a skinny tie and my Michael Jackson Thriller jacket.
Well, there
I
you
still
go.
have it.
You should bring it in sometime.
The merry-go-round, I think, unfortunately, it's weird. I think it may be starting to melt.
Oh.
They said it was leather. I think they may have lied.
Probably.
A little bit. The merry-go-round in the Lafayette Square Mall. You guys remember that? I still have my Thriller jacket. If you're on hold, I'll get to you in a second. More about last night and the fiasco with Bally Sports, and a lot of you not being able to see the Pacers. And again, what'd you miss? I mean, just a really bad basketball game from a Pacer standpoint. But what was missing, just the programming in general, what you missed, that was much worse. The lack of execution with Bally Sports and that app than the Pacers losing on a Monday night on October the 30th at home to the Bulls. Much worse. Back into that coming up in a bit. Bob Kravitz coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. NFL trade deadline to get to as well. About that and more. Brad Spielberger will crunch some numbers on this Halloween from Pro Football Focus via the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Happy Halloween, Brad. How are you?
Happy Halloween. Doing well. How you doing?
Are you staked out in Brooklyn right now?
In Queens, New York.
All right. So what's will you people visit you for Halloween? Will you hand out candy in Queens, New York?
They probably will. Yeah, I live in more of a residential area as opposed to the concrete jungle, so I'm sure we'll get some families with some small kids coming around. And I bought a very limited amount of candy because I already know that I'm going to end up eating 80% of it. So
yes.
Hopefully it's not a lot of kids that come by. Or hopefully it is a lot of kids that come by and they take all of it, I should say.
Now, do you leave your light on, which means welcome to trick-or-treaters, or turn it off when they're no longer welcome? Do you utilize that?
Yeah, you got to go with that system, and then when you're done with it, you put the bowl out. You don't start with the bowl out because then someone comes and takes the whole thing, as I used to do as a kid every year. So you start with the doorbell system, and then eventually you just put it out and say, all right, first kid to come up to the stoop gets all the gander.
Yeah, I always thought if you had a house that had the light off on the front porch, you were like saying, "Beat it, nerd." You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
Get out of here. Yeah, we don't want you here. Get out of here. That's Brad Spielberger in Queens, New York, PFF with us. I want to start with the trade deadline right now, which has been going down now, come and gone. What'd you make of it? Were there some things out there you'd heard didn't happen, and what about the things that ultimately did, Brad?
Yeah, I think it was still a pretty active and fun deadline. Last year with Christian McCaffrey and T.J. Hawkinson and Bradley Chubb. But we still got a handful of big deals today. Obviously, both Commanders' edge rushers. You get Rasul Douglas, the cornerback from Green Bay, who's playing some great football going to Buffalo, who desperately needed help at cornerback. So, yeah, I think there were a couple deals that didn't happen that I think maybe become interesting this upcoming offseason, particularly at edge rusher. Does Carolina, now they're going to franchise tag Brian Burns? Is he going to demand his way out of there? And are they going to take, cents on the dollar after they could have had 2 first-round picks and a second-round pick for Burns last year from the L.A. Rams? And the Vikings with Danielle Hunter, what do they do? Are they going to extend him now, or are they going to lose him for nothing, or a compensatory pick, what have you? So, yeah, still a lot of intrigue going forward with a lot of these players.
So Brad Spielberger is with us. Which move do you like the best?
It's interesting. There's a lot of different angles to the Washington moves. I do like that they recognize the new owner in Josh Harris, who obviously is infamous for the 76ers and the trust the process situation in the NBA. And I think a lot of people fail to understand the Commanders are going to lose one of these guys no matter what for zero return because you only have one franchise tag and the other guy's going to walk, and you're probably not getting a compensatory pick because I think Harris is going to spend a lot in free agency. So, excuse me, I just appreciated that they moved Montez Sweat for a second-round pick to start the day. I think it's a good idea. 27-year-old player, good player. I think he's a high-end number 2 edge rusher, not really a number 1, doesn't win one-on-one pass rush matchups. Moving both guys, I certainly did not foresee, but I do respect it. I mean, they are just getting value out of assets and kind of starting over, and I assume investing way more on offense and not having 4 expensive defensive linemen, which was the alternative.
Being a spot, a destination for those high-dollar, high-value type of positional players that are so coveted around the NFL, I guess with the exception of Brock Purdy, will all this John Lynch maneuvering for these high-value, high-dollar guys, if they don't win at all, will this go poof right in his face?
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing for me is you have another draft pick. So if you did want to, replace Brock Purdy, they do have a bunch of these third-round compensatory picks because of, the signing of Rand Carthon to be the Titans GM, the signing of D'Amico Ryans to the Texans head coach. So that's where these third-round picks are coming from. They've also gotten them from Mike McDaniel, when a minority is hired as a head coach or a general manager. So they're kind of house money. But I don't know if I would view it that way. If you need to replace the quarterback, it makes it a little bit harder to do so. And they know that as well as anyone when they traded, multiple first-round picks for Trey Lance. And then the last piece for me, too, is, Brandon Ayuk, I think, should be getting, $25 million a year this offseason. I think he is a premier elite wide receiver. So they have in-house guys that need money, too. It's definitely interesting, but I do respect him making the push. And I wonder if Chase Young is just a rental, just a mercenary half-season rental, and then you let him go sign elsewhere. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the view here.
To Brad Spielberger of Pro Football Focus, the ending of the 2023 NFL trade deadline, that conversation and more on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Was there a move that wasn't made where you're skeptical, where maybe you think it should have?
It's interesting, the Jalen Johnson situation. So, look, I actually do like what Chicago did. Just a solo second-round pick for Montez Sweat. I think he is a good football player. However, I mentioned the Bradley Chubb move last year, and a lot of these bigger moves for premium position players, you have to, if you're the new team, try extremely hard to get an extension done on a guy you're going to pay. You want to do it as soon as humanly possible so the market doesn't go up, so the player doesn't gain more and more leverage as time goes by. So you bring in Montez Sweat and you don't move Jalen Johnson now. So, again, you have 1 franchise tag. You have 2 really, really good football players, and you probably have to use the franchise tag on Montez Sweat in theory if it got there so you don't waste a second-round pick. And then, again, that means you lose Jalen Johnson potentially for nothing because the Bears are going to spend like crazy in free agency, I would assume. So that dynamic is interesting. I know Johnson has come out and said he's going to refuse to – well, he didn't say it, but, reporters saying he was going to refuse to negotiate with the team and he has no intention of signing there. You're losing a number 1 corner maybe for nothing here.
Brad Spielberger with us. If you were watching, even from a distance, the Colts game, were you somewhat shocked that Jonathan Taylor had such early success and then Shane Steichen ultimately in the second half, for whatever reason, pulled the plug on him? Did that shock you at all?
Yeah, it was interesting. I'm sure he's still just trying to protect the long-term interest of the team and the player more specifically. We love to see a 30-carry game where he takes over and just continues to bowl over other guys and just build and kind of wear down an opposing defense. But, frankly, you're playing one of the best run defenses in the NFL the last several years. I'm not going to call it a lost season. You're learning a ton about this team. You're getting great production from young guys like Josh Downs and, splash plays from Juju Brent, etc. But I don't know. I'm not overly concerned in, winning a game by giving Jonathan Taylor 35 carries in his, third game back from an injury.
Let me tell you this, Brad. I have referenced this weeks ago upon the injury of Anthony Richardson done for the season as a lost season. I believe right now the Colts are kind of like, I'll put you in a Halloween term film, kind of like Jack Nicholson, Jack Torrance in that maze in The Shining at the end. That's where the Colts are with this season to me right now.
Look, and I see it the same way in some ways, but I think what you try to do is play young guys as much as possible. So, like I mentioned, Josh Downs, I think Will Fries has started to stack some pretty solid outings. He was a major question mark for me at right guard, and I think he's getting a little bit better as the season goes on. I mentioned the young secondary and all those guys, and you just build a culture, build a winning model. And look, a lot of those are cliches, but I'll tell you right now, if you're a free agent offensive player and you're watching what Shane Steichen is doing with Gardner Minshew at quarterback, knowing Richardson's going to return, a great prospect that showed flashes, heck, I'd want to go play for Shane Steichen. I mean, it is truly remarkable, in my opinion, what they've done. The only team in the NFL to score 20-plus points in every game, and they've done it against a lot of good defenses, including the New Orleans Saints.
Brad Spielberger of Pro Football Focus joins us. What's going to happen with Kirk Cousins? What's going to be his value once he returns from that injury?
It's so tough. I mean, an Achilles injury for a 35, 36-year-old quarterback, I feel terrible for him first and foremost. I mean, in a contract year, playing some of the best football of his entire career, had a top 5 passing grade for us in the entire NFL. And I mean, look at that Niners game by itself, evading pressure, consistently hitting downfield targets to Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkinson, Brandon Powell. I mean, really just making the most of the situation. Now it's interesting. I don't know because, I know Aaron Rodgers is doing his voodoo magic and whatever he's doing for his Achilles, but normal human beings, I would imagine, Kirk might not even be able to sign until after, the draft and kind of wait for things to play out for other teams. So your guess is as good as mine. I'm not a doctor. I don't know, but someone will bring him in. I think a team like in Atlanta or something like that, if they don't love what they see the rest of the year from their quarterback, maybe tries to replicate, the Tom Brady Buccaneers, sort of. It's not the same thing. He'll go somewhere for a good, I'll say, 1 year, $25 million, but I just don't know enough about the medicals.
All right, Brad, you brought it up here. Aaron Rodgers, the Jets are 4-3. He believes that if they stay in some sort of contention, that he will reemerge by the end of the season. Again, you're staked out in Queens, New York. Are people buying into this, as you mentioned, kind of voodoo, magic, return, doing something that I don't even know if I've ever seen anything like this in that amount of time?
It's crazy, but they're buying in, and they really believe it, and I know the building is starting to believe it too, and like you said, I haven't really seen it either. The one example we have is Rams running back Cam Akers, who got the same procedure. It's a very new medical procedure, and he returned from, let's say, end of training camp. He came back for the playoffs, so a longer period of time. However, it's a guy cutting and taking hits as a running back versus a quarterback that maybe can protect himself, although the guy was also 15 years younger than Aaron Rodgers. But anyway, so, I think it's going to happen. I think he wants to not only return, but maybe play a late regular season game if it matters. And to tie back to an earlier question of yours, a move that didn't happen that I don't really get. The Jets lose 2 more interior offensive linemen to IR this past week. They're now going to be on a second-string center and a third-string right guard, at least for the foreseeable future. Ezra Cleveland in Minnesota going to Jacksonville for a 6th-round pick. I'm not really sure why the Jets wouldn't beat that offer. That didn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Brad Spielberger, PFF's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. How much sense did Will Levis in his NFL debut make, throwing 4 touchdowns and leading the Titans to a 28-23 win over the Falcons?
Yeah, credit to him. I know Atlanta was the other team making a huge push for Montez Sweat, and you saw why in that game. They have a bottom 5 pass rush win rate for us off the edge. So they have great interior players in David Onyemata and Grady Jarrett, although Jarrett is now lost for the season. But they have nothing to speak of at edge rusher. And so Will Levis was really comfortable navigating that pocket or, strafing a little to the outside, but not completely bailing because the tackles were holding up pretty well. And, there were some misses in there, and there were, some busted coverages, but he made a couple really, really impressive throws down the field. Obviously, a couple bombs to DeAndre Hopkins. Yeah, he looked great.
What about the Chiefs? Kansas City, in preparation to go to Germany and take on the Dolphins, looked. Speaking of Jack Torrance and The Shining, they kind of looked frozen out in Denver over the weekend. What was the reason, and why, on the other hand, did Denver look so different than we have seen them so far?
Yeah, that defense has played Kansas City pretty well now, 2 out of the last 3 weeks, and credit to them. And the biggest singular thing is getting back Baron Browning, their former 3rd-round pick, who's a converted off-ball linebacker to edge rusher, who's a really, really good football player. In 2 games now this season, has 10 pressures and 2 sacks, a super high pass rush win rate, consistently winning reps. And he was great last year as he converted into the position. So, that's kind of the micro thing. From a macro level, you saw a drop touchdown from Sky Moore. You saw a drop 30-yard ball over the middle, by Rashee Rice. Like, I get Travis Kelce is arguably the best pass catcher in the entire NFL right now. Certainly up there with Tyreek Hill, et cetera. They don't have a wide receiver on the roster right now, and they'll probably still figure it out. For all we know, they'll still win the Super Bowl. But I'm a little surprised they didn't do even something small for a wide receiver today.
So the Panthers get their first win of the season this past weekend over the Texans. Of course, the Colts go there on Sunday and take on the coach that this time last year they punched out and fired as head coach of the Colts, and Frank Reich. I guess we'll start right here. How did Bryce Young look to you in his first win as an NFL starting quarterback?
He did have a couple super nice throws. He evaded pressure. He got bumped by an edge rusher, rolled out to his left, and threw a perfect touch ball over the defender to Adam Thielen down the left sideline. And so you're seeing a couple of those flashes week to week. But on a down-to-down basis, that offense is still largely anemic. I mean, they had a couple good catch and runs from rookie Jonathan Mingo and a couple other plays here and there. But to consistently sustain drives, they still haven't done it, frankly, all season long. The defense stepped up on C.J. Stroud, and I guess in a similar manner, the extra motivation, instead of the head coach for that one, I think there was a lot of, hey, we took our quarterback ahead of this guy and C.J. Stroud. Everyone's talking about Stroud now. Let's win this one for our guy. So maybe that applies to the Frank Reich revenge game as well. But, yeah, the offense still didn't impress me all that much. They just kind of won an ugly game against Houston.
Yeah, and one that they needed desperately as well. Again, Brad Spielberger joins us. Ravens 31-24 over the Cardinals. I want to get to the Bengals and Niners in just a second, and the reemerges now at 4-3 of Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. But start with the Ravens. It looked kind of like a cluster most of the way, but it was one of those road games I guess you'll look back on. Maybe you want to forget about it, but glad you're now 6-2 as a team.
Yeah, and I think the Ravens have had about 4 of those so far this season. They do deserve credit, for blowing out a good Detroit Lions team. But that's why I didn't love, their prospects against the Detroit Lions. But, hey, credit to them that they absolutely dominated that game. So Lamar Jackson also had one of the best throws of the week. He's getting hit in his left leg, which is swinging over his body, and then he just torques the throw to the end zone to Mark Andrews for a touchdown. It was one of the more impressive throws of the week because I'm not sure how he generated as much velocity on it as he did. He's an MVP candidate for me. He is firmly in that conversation now. He's playing great ball. Some of the box score numbers aren't quite there, but he's had a bunch of drops by his receivers and missed opportunities. But I think a couple more weeks like he's playing, that conversation will start taking over. He's been exceptional.
Bengals 4-3, now above 500. Is it go time in Cincinnati?
110%. They are now, interestingly, one of the healthier teams in the NFL, on both sides of the ball. After dealing with a whole host of injuries, their offensive line looks good. Joe Burrow is clearly back to being Joe Burrow. Had a couple scrambles in that game. There's one video going around Twitter where he evades the sack for like 8 seconds and then delivers a throw to T. Higgins down the right sideline as he's taking a shot. He pops right back up, and later on in that drive, he converted a 3rd and 9 on a QB draw. There were plays in the playbook that simply did not exist the first month. So, yes, the Bengals are all the way back. Trey Hendrickson's a top 10 edge rusher in the NFL and probably deserves more accolades in his own right. This team should be scaring everyone in the AFC. The sleeping giant has returned.
One final thing, too. The Jaguars now 6-2, and they knock off Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh. Is it legitimacy here, or the Jaguars just kind of taking advantage of some of these teams on their schedule here? What do you think?
No, I think it's legit. I think we've probably talked about it. I still view them as a legitimate contender for the 1 seed in the AFC, in part because, they have a more favorable divisional schedule than other teams do across the conference, particularly that AFC North we just talked about. But for me, even though there has been some clunkiness on offense at times, the Jaguars' defense is for real, and that unit was a problem last year. They have a top 5 run defense in pretty much every metric you want to look at, and the coverage play is getting better and better. Darius Williams, a great free agent addition. Tyson Campbell, their best corner, has actually missed the last 2 or 3 weeks, and they're still locking down opposing quarterbacks. So, no, I think they're for real. I mentioned the Ezra Cleveland trade, the guard from Minnesota. I think it was a good little depth pickup for them. I think the Jaguars are legit.
Brad, what are you writing about, my brother?
I'll be covering all the trade deadline deals and grading everything up, and then probably starting to move forward and look at some of the post-deadline extensions we start to get.
Post-deadline. Well, where do we start right there, Bradley?
Yeah, so, just some of the contracts that could be on the horizon. We saw Rashawn Gary with the Green Bay Packers get a 4-year, $96 million deal, which I think was very team-friendly, and maybe get some other deals on the way. I'm sure the Bears are trying to extend Montez Sweat right now as we speak, and a handful of others, not just the guys that got traded too. So other players across the NFL, that are going into contract or that are, pending free agents. I'll be writing up a bunch of them and kind of getting ready for that market on the way.
You are the man, Brad. Have a safe and enjoyable Halloween night in Queens, New York.
You do the same. Thank you.
Brad Spielberger. I will do the same outside of Bargersville. No kids come to my place. Was that a sign? I got a couple hanging around there, I think. Behind me. Oh, I love the Dietrichs. Shout out to the Dietrichs. Dennis. What? Is it not an inviting place where let's come on in? I have very little candy, though, because, listen, I've got the miniatures from Hershey, the various brands. If you're going to get a bag of that, you get Hershey's, you get Special Dark, which is supposed to, is that the diet chocolate? That's the chocolate that's good for you. Special Dark. When you were little, those are the ones that never were consumed. Mr. Goodbar, Crackle. Am I missing anything? Are those the 4 in there? Hershey's miniatures. What's your favorite there? That's what I have right now, but a tiny bit. You know what I'm talking about?
Not really.
James. Crackle? You don't know what Crackle is? It's like the Nestle Crunch bar, according to Hershey. That's Crackle.
I like the Crunch bar. I don't think I've ever had a Crackle, or I can't think of it.
James, were you just born like yesterday? Did you just get hatched?
Maybe.
Just wondering. I'm thinking 95% of that I bring up, you have no idea.
Yeah.
I think you were just hatched. Were you hatched yesterday?
We're just from different times, I guess.
Under a heat lamp? James over there, too. Happy Halloween to everybody, by the way, too. Thank you so much for joining us. Kravitz is going to come up in the 5 o'clock hour. You know what? I've got time for you. I got time for you right now, and I opened up with a variety of things, and some are pissy, some aren't. Let's get into whatever you want to. If it's the pissiness, it is. I just sent out an X or a tweet. How could the Colts not make a trade for a late-round pick they'll cut in July? How could they not do it? Late-round pick. Draft stock. The language of the loser. Seriously, it is. That's what it is around here right now. Because how many years has it been that you've said that? And you know what? It'd be really easy for me to say, yeah, you know what, that's really good. You're building for the future, but it's been so damn long. And you know what? The ones that are buying tickets are the ones that should be really pissed. You're the ones that should not want to hear that language ever again. You're buying tickets and doing all that stuff on a Sunday, and then before Halloween, you get the language, the conversation of late-round draft picks. So you get used to that, and that's a rut that takes a long time, as we have witnessed, to emerge from. That's where a lot of you are right now. Fantasy football is really fun, but it's not fun with the team that you follow, especially if you invest your own disposable income. Quickwood, come back with you on the other side. We'll lead with my man Fulton. Tracksides at 7 tonight. Joined in progress World Series Game 4. The Rangers up 2-1 in that best of 7. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 9 o'clock for that. Thursday and Friday on the road. Kravitz coming up. Man, the Pacers, you think they just lost to the Bulls in a bad game last night. They lost a lot more with their coverage fiasco. Get back into that, too. And what the IHSAA is doing in eliminating television coverage and going to a stream. Got to be careful here. I understand moving to the future, but you cannot afford around here to leave anybody behind. Been through it. I know. Quick break. Back with you next.
Hey, it's Kevin Bowen here for my friends at Window Nation. Fall is the best time of year. There's so much love about the fall, especially the return of Window Nation's best offer of the year. Get 2 windows free for every 2 you buy. Plus, put no money down, make no payments, and pay no interest for 2 years. If your old windows are hard to open and close or drafty and leaky, now is the time to call Window Nation. Take care of it now before the cold weather arrives. You'll be loving the new look and feel of your home. Plus, save up to 30% off your energy bills. You'll also love Window Nation's knowledgeable exterior designers and quick, clean, accurate, professional installation. Not to mention, you'll love the savings of this fantastic offer. Put no money down, make no payments, and pay no interest for 2 full years. And for every 2 windows you buy, you'll get 2 windows free. But this offer will disappear as fast as the leaves on your maple trees. So call Window Nation today, 866-90Nation, or visit windownation.com.
Hey, John, for WeGrowHairAndy.com, incredibly luscious hair. Seriously, if I wanted to go back and dress up tonight for Halloween as Steve Alford in 1983, I could easily do it right now. I could put on some grape smugglers, go out there in some IU gear, butt cut, part my hair down the middle, feather it on the side, and I am the phenom out of Newcastle, Indiana, circa 1983. I could do that because of WeGrowHairAndy.com. 888-724-5129. I have the hair to do it. Kevin Bowen of The Morning Show is now getting involved with WeGrowHairAndy.com. I mentioned a little bit earlier, he's going to look like a modern-day Gabe Kaplan when it's said and done. Incredibly luscious hair for Kevin Bowen coming up, too. And all you got to do is make that call, 888-724-5129. It's your real growing hair again. WeGrowHairAndy.com today.
Everyone here knows Diamonds Direct is the place to go for the best diamonds at the best prices. But did you know that savvy buyers from all over America, even Los Angeles and New York, now come here to buy their diamonds? These high-end shoppers have discovered that Diamonds Direct has one of America's best selections of large, rare diamonds, from 3 carats to 20 carats, all certified by the GIA, the most reputable and most trusted gem lab in the world. Because of Diamonds Direct's international connections and tremendous buying power, we're one of only a handful of jewelry stores in America that is able to offer a large selection of rare and precious GIA diamonds. In fact, Diamonds Direct's multi-million-dollar selection includes a stunning array of high-end Riviera necklaces, 20-carat tennis bracelets, and an extraordinary collection of rare, precious gemstones, rubies, sapphires, emeralds, and even the really hard-to-find fancy yellow diamonds. Come see why Diamonds Direct is the destination for high-end shoppers all over America. Keystone at the Crossing, official jeweler of the Indianapolis Colts, and proud to call Indy home. Diamonds Direct, your love, our passion.
What a great time right now. We're going to enter November, right? What a great time, seriously, to get yourself in a new set of wheels with my friend Eric Wilson and Andy Morbury GMC. 131st State Road 37 in Fishers. Well, where do we start on this, too? Such a great variety. It's kind of like going out and tricking and treating tonight, right? Except there's no trick. What you get is all treats, and you get a great variety, like a lot of you are looking for later on this evening as well. And you get that along with the customer service and the price tag. You get that greatness at one place. It's my friend Eric Wilson and Andy Morbury GMC, 131st State Road 37 in Fishers.
I'm John Morgan of Morgan & Morgan. Today, we're the largest injury firm in the world, and I'm thankful to you for trusting us all these years. We'll always be here for the people, not the powerful. We'll always be here for you. Morgan & Morgan.
Visit forthepeople.com for an office near you.
BullseyeEventGroup.com and the Colts VIP tailgate presented by Hayes & Sons Restoration. All you can eat, all you can drink. Celebrity chef from Fox, Kelsey Murphy, and more. You got to get your tickets now. BullseyeEventGroup.com.
The Wake Up Call with KB and Andy.
Rick Carlisle joins us.
What's your biggest unknown about this year's team?
There are a few unknowns. Exactly how the rotation is going to shake out. Health is always going to be a decider. We're going to need to have a high level of professionalism to absorb those challenges. Being out of the rotation, being ready when called upon is a challenging task.
The Wake Up Call with KB and Andy. Weekdays 7 to 10 on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan. The Ride with JMV.
Here's Johnny.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
I love The Shining. The only problem I have with The Shining is it is so damn long.
I have never actually seen the entire movie all the way through.
Like any Stanley Kubrick movie, A lot of it is great, and especially maybe 40, 45 minutes of it is absolutely spectacular. And then you get points in time and you go, man, if I needed to go number 2 right now, I'd have some time to do it. And I know that like, who am I to get on Stanley Kubrick, right? And I know that you had to paint a significant portrait of film of the downward spiral of the sanity of Jack Torrance. But I think, like, halfway through, we understood that. Maybe it was the first half. I don't know if you're setting up the normalcy. Am I looking at that too much? Here is something, and I don't know if anybody's ever felt that way. Maybe it's just me, right? But when did this come out? 1980, I was 10 years old. And a lot of you will probably disagree. And I know that she's been in some Woody Allen films. She's was Olive Oyl and Popeye opposite Robin Williams as Popeye. But when I was 10, I kind of had, and also when I was 10, I had a thing for everybody, all right? Everybody. I had a thing there, thing here, thing there. I had a thing for Shelley Duvall. Seriously.
From The Shining?
Yes, I did. I kind of had a thing.
Really?
She acted like a cool chick to me.
Interesting.
She looked like she'd go make you a sandwich. You want to read your work, was actively involved in your life, cared about your kid, protective of your kid, could get in and out of that maze, that hedge maze whenever there was just something about her. Also saw the ghosts, right?
Didn't she have a terrible time filming The Shining? Wasn't that a big thing?
I think so.
I think, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember hearing about that.
I had a thing for Shelley Duvall, and I may be the only person that's ever said that. And I'm proud. I had a thing for Shelley Duvall. Yeah, I do love The Shining. Original Halloween, I believe, is on AMC tonight at 7 o'clock. If anybody needs that rite of passage this time of year, the original John Carpenter classic, and simply put, the greatest horror film / thriller of all time. Tonight at 7 o'clock. And you can find that on AMC. Fulton is at 239-1070. Happy Halloween, Fulton.
Happy Halloween to you, JMV.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate you.
What's going on?
I'm just trying to recollect my days as a 10-year-old, thinking of Shelley Duvall. Racking my brain right now. What do you got, Fulton?
I've got the big show coming up in a week.
Yes. That's what I hear.
Yep, pretty much.
I can't wait, Fulton. I'm excited for you. Really excited.
Yeah. Yep, we've been busy, so.
Well, stay at it. Keep in touch with me. I got your number, so I'm going to send you a text, maybe even call you here, and we'll get on the same page, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
You got it, buddy. You call me anytime. Thank you, Fulton. JMV, I think your thing for Shelley Duvall was just you and probably Popeye with her similarities to Olive Oyl. And I would agree. It may also, she was in a Woody Allen film, and I know we're not allowed to talk about those anymore, but she was in a Woody Allen film. Was it Annie Hall I think she was in? Look that up. Annie Hall. I believe in my film class at Indiana State University, part of an assignment I had is to sit through all the dialogue of Woody Allen's Annie Hall.
It was Annie Hall.
Yeah. So, I think I was attracted to her in Annie Hall, and I may have had a little thing for Diane Keaton, too, along the way. Just maybe. She wearing hats. She made a hat look really good in 1977 when I was 7 years old. Really like a chick with a hat. Eddie's up next at 239-1070. Hello, Eddie.
Hey, it's Eddie from HH Craig.
Hello, Eddie. Long time no talk.
Yeah. A few quick topics. Your buddy Miles Turner, top 15 in the league in rebounds, top 7 in blocks. And I can't wait till the midseason tournament to see hopefully Greg Popovich and the Spurs make it to the championship and see how many players he plays in that 83rd game. And wanted to ask if you ever talked with Mark Patrick anymore. And my childhood girl was Claudia Schiffer.
Oh, well, there's nothing wrong with that right there, Eddie. Thank you very much. I have not. Mark was inducted into the Indiana Broadcasting Hall of Fame about a month ago. which, assuming his career path was incredibly long overdue. But I talked to Drew more than occasionally with he and, obviously his whiskey, which has been outstanding, Field of Dreams. But, Mark is living a life right now, too. He's digging it. I think the last time he was on here, he was on with Vince Welch, I think, over the summer. It just sounded great, too. Thank you, Eddie. Good to hear from you again. Yeah, Sean, I could probably expect you sent me a modern-day photo. I was talking about 1980. JMV Paul Simon lived with Shelley Duvall while she was shooting Annie Hall in New York in 76. Duvall met singer-songwriter Paul Simon. The couple began a relationship and lived together for 2 years. The relationship ended when Duvall introduced Simon to her friend. Now, who was her friend here? Actress somebody. Ooh, actress Carrie Fisher. Thank you very much. No longer with us. Yeah, Shining's one of my all-time favorites. It is just... Sometimes it just gets lengthy. And the same can be said about Stanley Kubrick's film Full Metal Jacket. Like Full Metal Jacket. To me, Full Metal Jacket it was just way long. And a lot of you kind of check out, I think, after basic training. But I think in a lot of respects, it was as good as Platoon for that particular era. But I do love the films. There's no doubt about that. No way Kevin Bowen knows who the hell Gabe Kaplan is. I'm telling you, man, when he goes through WeGrowHairIndy.com, he is going to look like Mr. Kater. Guaranteed. Look at that. SPT gave me a side-by-side on my Twitter account right here of Kevin Bowen and Mr. Kater. He's going to look exactly like Gabe Kaplan in 1976. It's from DJ. JMV, I just canceled my season tickets. I'm sick of paying to watch losses. A lot of people think that I'm misguided when I suggest that I should not embrace, for example, trading of Zach Moss for a late round, a third-day selection. And here's why. I look at Zach Moss, and maybe he doesn't want to, maybe he'll want to leave. But I look at Zach Moss as having a spot on this team. I look at Zach Moss as being a talented player. And frankly, this team needs all the talented players that it can get. The other thing is, for all the young nerds out there that think that we all have 25 years to wait on getting a winner around here, I am not among those. I want to see winning expedited as quickly as possible, and I think it's bad business, no matter the circumstances, to trade good, useful players that you could bring back and serve a significant role on the team. And if I paid for season tickets every year, and this is the type of product around Halloween I've been introduced to over the years, I would have had enough. So I'm sorry if I'm outspoken and you covet so much those late round selections, but take your fantasy football nerdery someplace else, because I'm not interested. Embrace good players. I think Zach Moss has a spot on this team. There wasn't really anything that made any sense to me. Certainly not bringing anybody in. Now we get this spot every single year. It was just like the Pacers, too. Got to hear all about your draft capital. At some point, we all have to stop. Or at some point, the teams around here have to justify your confidence in them getting it done over a 25-year period. At some point. So that's why I feel the way that I do. And really, I think I'm outspoken about those of you that pay the price of admission here. Aaron Vincent says, I did not have Crackle on my JMV bingo card. I bet you didn't have Shelley Duvall or Diane Keaton either, I'm guessing. Sometimes we just fall into it around here. Did you have the fog with Adrian Barbeau? Come on now, JMV. They signed a guard off the practice squad. That's about as big as it gets around here. That is very true. I didn't expect anything, and nothing as it stands happened. And apparently they didn't have any interest in anything, which is completely unsurprising. At JMV, ridiculous. Sports leagues and franchises do not care about the impact to average fans. It's about the money and only the money. I'm telling you, this whole Pacers thing right now with Bally Sports Indiana, I know everybody's mad at Bally Sports Indiana, but that is a direct reflection. And even though the Pacers may not have a thing to do with it, it is on their shoulders, and somebody better step up and do something about it. Well, what can they do? You better do something. You better tell your product provider on TV to get the job done right, or else. And again, I know that Bally's going through bankruptcy. I'm just telling you, last night's loss to the Bulls, that wasn't the worst thing that happened to the Pacers. Being an absolute screw job trying to find that. And I don't take solace in the fact that I got to watch it because I have DirecTV. Because believe me, DirecTV screws me with other things, just like you're getting screwed by Bally Sports Indiana right now. I mentioned this a little bit earlier. I don't even know if Anthony Calhoun still exists the last time I saw Wish TV Channel 8. Last time I saw Wish TV Channel 8, it was Mike Ahern and Debbie Knox. That's how long it's been off DirecTV. And believe me, I don't care if I don't watch a channel. But if I'm going to pay for it, if it's a part of my package, then I want to know, if I feel like tuning in, that it's going to be there and I can watch it. It's customer service. That's what we all deserve. What you guys got last night was a joke. I'm going to tell you, the Pacers need to have a response. Enough is enough. I mean, we kind of went through this, and it was kind of a joke. And, oh, man, I cut the cord, and I'm doing this, and I'm doing that. And some people say I get it free if I go overseas in Europe or whatever, and nobody gives a crap. You got to make it easy. I know that there are a lot of smart people out there, and you can navigate your way through a website to others, and you can find links in which you can watch this for free. But a large portion of Pacer fans out there cannot. And you know what's going to happen? They're going to check out and not give a crap. And if I'm the Pacers, even if it's not my fault, I would step in and try to find some way, any way, to make it happen. To be assured that our product is going to be seen. When you think about last night, was a Monday night. I know it was World Series Game 3 and Monday Night Football, but I mean, Monday Night Football was in Detroit. Only knuckleheads watching that. State of Michigan. And I don't know how many people watched the World Series. I did, but I also could turn it over and watch the Pacers. I could flip back and forth. But you really want to get excited about this product. And I don't care if they lost to the Bulls, it didn't play well, and if Rick Carlisle made a mistake and should have subbed in T.J. McConnell. That was a McConnell game. Turned it over 17 times, and Andrew Nembhard, whom I like a great deal, turned it over 6 times. That's a McConnell game. There are going to be games this season, as I mentioned earlier, in which there are going to be McConnell games. That was a TJ game. A faulty maneuver by the head coach. But you got to know that that's going to be there. Jim Reamer says, simple, petition the NBA to remove the blackout. There's nothing simple about this. I mean, on either side, because if it were simple, somebody would have not gone through the bad publicity and the negativity to get to where we are right now. I'm just telling you this. You can blame, and you will, Bally, but and I come from a radio standpoint. I'm glad you're listening to the radio broadcast. I'm in radio, but I want you guys to be happy. And then you ask me for answers to your questions about what are you supposed to do, and I don't have really any decent answers for you. You can join me and pay $200+ a month in DirecTV, which is outrageous, as I've done for the past 24 years. Or you can sit and jack around with not only not getting the product that you pay $20 a month for, but also not getting the respect of a response to the issue. That is the Pacer product. Even though they're not directly responsible, the responsibility is going to fall on their shoulders. Somebody better do something about it. If you're on hold, I'll get to you. Quick break, and we shall return. Kravitz going to join me coming up at the top of the hour. Bob Kravitz has a new for his Substack column. What do you call it? New picture? What do we call that? New design.
Logo?
Like an old logo, a new logo. A new/old sports writer logo for Kravitz. Substack column. Bob joins us top of the hour. Me and you if you're on hold next.
The Fan.
The Ride with JMV.
I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face and the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Dr. Loomis was a badass, wasn't he? Donald Pleasance, everybody. Dr. Loomis, the original Halloween. I can't believe you let him out. So Michael Myers was, in this institution his entire life, and my man broke out and immediately just fired up, stole a set of wheels and fired up the station wagon and drove to Haddonfield. Hey, nothing wrong with that. I'm assuming the station wagon he drove was an automatic, right? I love it. The overacting of Donald Pleasance as Dr. Loomis in Halloween is one of the great gifts. I mean, one of the great gifts out there. Dr. Loomis, thank you very much. JMV, of course you had a thing for Shelley Duvall. J.C. Penney bra ads would give you, yeah. Hey, I was all about that. People think there were 3 things that I loved growing up with the Sears catalog wish book. I love the toy section. I love the NFL section. The best NFL product ever sold, ever created from the Sears catalog and the Sears wish book. The other section was always the go-to was the bra section, right? Everyone. I'm not going to lie to you around here. I'm going to tell you exactly what went down. Kenny's up next at 239-1070. Hello, Kenny.
Hey, what's up, my man?
How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, man. This is the show to be all pissed, isn't it?
Well, I think that's where we find ourselves. I mean, there's just not enough glory, right? Not enough winning to be able to lean on around here. It's always one step forward and 2 steps back with a lot of things here. And until we find some consistency, I think we're going to be angry about things at times.
Well, I'm right behind you. A couple things. You brought up Lafayette Square merry-go-round. It made me feel really old, so I appreciate that.
You got it, buddy.
That was my stomping ground. The McConnell thing. So, game opener, we got Carlisle, Carlisle's tearing up because, he couldn't get TJ in. They had this heart-to-heart. Then he goes to Cleveland, and he owns the game. Yeah. And you're like, oh, so JMV, like one day later, you got to see I told you guys so.
I did.
And then
all
of a sudden, last night's game, I thought he was hurt. I'm like, what do you mean the coach's decision did not play?
Yeah.
You're right. If ever was a game, even for 5 minutes, to see what he does.
Yeah.
How about some energy?
And believe me, I love Andrew Nemhart. He's going to be the future, but he turned it over 6 times. He didn't have it. That was a McConnell game last night, and Rick missed the boat on it.
Well, I know you're busy, but and then the third thing is, so you don't want to hear Chris Ballard at a press conference say, we traded 3 players, Moss and Pittman, another guy, for 7 future round draft picks in 2028.
I want to hear a 3rd-day draft pick. Nothing makes me more nauseous than that phrase. Yes.
I know. And the last thing is, Bally Sports I'm not on the app side of it, but we're getting rid of ATT Jupers because it's $250 a month. And then I come to find out that Bally Sports just wants $187 just to watch the Pacer games on YouTube TV. And I'm like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, last night was a bad night for the Pacers and much worse than just losing to the Bulls like that. It was.
I agree. Well, happy Halloween. I'll let you go. You have a great show.
Thank you, Kenny. That's very kind of you. Win Schuler Spreadable Cheeses. The spreadability is wreaking havoc inside the lounge via YouTube Live right now. Gritty's got, well, I better not put it that way. Let me think of a better way. I have the spreadability. You have the spreadability. We all have the spreadability. Win Schuler Spreadable Cheeses for your party, your tailgate. Original, sharp, bacon and cheddar, and pepper jack. Win Schuler Spreadable Cheeses. Meyer and Kroger locations. That's winschulers.com. Bob Kravitz, your calls and more. Busy 5 o'clock hour.
107.5 The Fan.
The Ride with JMV. I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You know what this song is, James?
No, I do not.
The Ghost in You. Psychedelic Furs.
Oh, we gave away tickets to that.
Well, not only did we do that, but our next guest and I, along with Chris Hagan,
That's right.
saw them live in September. And a shout out to Christian, our guy down at Brown County Music Center, for just an outstanding time. What a great venue, by the way, to attend. And then on our way home, we stopped on our way back at Frenchie's Pub in Morgantown, and our next guest, Bob Kravitz, musings of an old sports writer, had just one hell of a time there at Frenchie's in Morgantown. Bob Kravitz, who joins us on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Are you still reliving those moments that we all shared at Frenchie's on that September evening?
I need therapy. I required therapy after a trip to Frenchie's, and nice people.
No doubt
I'm glad they didn't kill us.
No doubt about that. Hey, by the way, your new logo, when I saw that yesterday, I first thought that wasn't necessarily a cigar, but maybe something you rolled on your own. And the other thought I had was maybe that was a little Oscar Madison-esque right there. Yeah.
Well, I told her that I wanted, a grizzled old curmudgeonly sports writer with a fedora and a press pass and a cigar. I'm actually going to reach out to her tomorrow and see if she can't turn that into a stogie, because quite frankly, it looks like a blunt.
That is absolutely a blunt. But listen, that's you. You don't need to change that. That's you.
Yeah, well, whatever. Not while I'm working.
It looks like you. I think it looks just fine, by the way. Now, were you a big fan of The Odd Couple? Oscar Madison and The Odd Couple? The Jack Klugman.
I love that show.
Yeah.
Jack Klugman and Tony Randall. And who are the Pigeon sisters?
I know that Penny Marshall was in that for a while before Laverne and Shirley, and so was Klugman's wife, the incredibly lovely from Match Game, Brett Summers, I believe, was in a lot of those episodes.
I remember her. Yeah, we're showing our age.
Yes, we are. We've outkicked the coverage of the audience listing right now, too, by about 10 years.
Pretty much.
What are you doing for Halloween tonight, buddy?
I'm just hoping that some kids come by. We bought all this candy last year. Nobody showed up.
No, now you live in a neighborhood with a lot of kids?
Yes.
Oh, man.
I don't know if the word got out. You shoot one and the word gets out. I don't know. We had all this candy laying around, and Lord knows the last thing I need is more candy.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I bought just a little bit and not much, because it's not I rarely see anybody. So yeah, so rarely see anybody. We'll see if that happens later on tonight. Where do I want to start? Trade deadline today. I'm assuming, just like me, you're not surprised that there were no moves here made.
No, not really. I thought maybe there's an outside chance that they might make a move with DeForest Buckner, of all people. I thought, at this point in his career, does he really want to stick around here? Kind of like Stephon Gilmore. I thought maybe, it was a wild thought, and I don't know why I had it, but I thought maybe they would move him or he'd want to be moved. But no, with Ballard, the only way you have trades usually is if a guy wants out, like Nyheim Hines.
Yeah, it's funny, too, when you think about it, Bob. Zach Moss was mentioned. You mentioned DeForest Buckner. And I'm in a position right now to where I think both still in the future have a great deal of value for this team. And I guess, even if it's a wrong train of thought I have, I'm sick and tired of them offering up guys with a future here. You know what I mean? And then getting a third-day draft selection, and then every fantasy football nerd that's online absolutely rejoices to the fact that Ballard gets a chance to pick in the 6th round. I don't care, because that's likely going to be somebody that's going to not make it out of July next year. So
it could be like Darius Rush, 5th round pick, who never made it out of camp. So those things don't excite me. The trades that were made were really interesting. I don't understand why the Chicago Bears are bolstering. I mean, I can totally understand the 49ers because they're going for it, and they've lost 3 in a row, and they're a little bit desperate. But why the Bears would move on Montez Sweat when he's got 1 year left on his contract is a little bit hard to understand, unless he's got an extension that I'm not aware of.
Yeah, you get Peoples-Jones, the wide receiver we saw a couple of weeks ago here, get moved from the Browns to the Lions. Dobbs at quarterback, and Kirk Cousins' future is incredibly cloudy now after that injury over the weekend too. But Josh Dobbs going to Minnesota, and you had mentioned Young. You mentioned Chase Young going to the Niners, and it seems like that whatever happens, John Lynch has a reservoir of being able to get those positions filled with so-called high-level talent that are so needy in the NFL, I guess with the exception of quarterback, considering he got Brock Purdy. But it just seems like that the Niners are always active, and you kind of wonder if they don't win it all, if that's going to bite them.
Yeah, they went and got McCaffrey last year at the deadline. They paid the King's ransom. But, I like organizations that go for it, that take risks. Unlike an organization we are familiar with, they don't take the big swing, or at least very rarely. But the crazy thing is, look, I mean, the Colts are going nowhere. Yeah. But they play 2 crappy teams in the next 2 weeks. They could very, very easily, if they just don't turn the ball over, you're looking at 5-5. You're not completely out of it. You're still playing meaningful football in late November and early December. So, it doesn't surprise you that, they're so thin in so many areas. Where, who could you have moved? I mean, I guess Kenny Moore.
Zach Moss was one. But I think Zach Moss, I like him, and I like him being, and I don't know if he'd want to be here or not, but I like him being here with Jonathan Taylor. Maybe not as much as, unplugging Jonathan Taylor in the fashion Shane Steichen did on Sunday, but I like that option of Moss being here.
Dude, it's been a couple of days, and I've heard all the explanations from Steichen and from Jim Bob Cooter today. I still don't buy it. When you've got a $26 million guy and you let him touch the ball 2 times in the second half, that to me is coaching malpractice.
It is. It is, and it was. And you can't tell me it was for self-preservation for Taylor moving forward regarding this year or anything like that. That was a head coach that thinks he's the smartest offensive wizard in the room that outsmarted himself.
That was Frank Reich throwing 26 consecutive times.
Yes.
Before Quentin Nelson walked over and said, "Hey, Bozo, let's run the ball."
Yeah, then no doubt about that. So I just, that part I didn't understand, and then obviously the situation they're in right now. I kind of referenced it as once Anthony Richardson went down, and now that this team is 3-5, since it's Halloween, it's like Jack Nicholson in that frozen maze where he couldn't find his way out, and he just kind of died right there. The Colts are in a frozen maze. This is an absolute lost season.
It is, and it was the minute that AR got surgery, this season became. I mean, the challenge, and it's a column that I'm working on. The challenge is finding things that are interesting. What do they need? What can they learn in the next 9-10 weeks? I mean, we were going to find out if they had a quarterback. And I think in the small sample size that we found out that they do have a quarterback in Anthony Richardson. But, what's interesting, what's compelling about this team to watch here in the next 8 weeks, and it's hard to come up with stuff.
Yeah, you're going to have 2023 season, the sequel. I mean, basically, you're going to have a sequel to an Anthony Richardson rookie season next year as well. No matter what you've seen, and listen, I've certainly piqued my interest, but we have zero way of knowing whether or not he's going to be durable enough and not be the same as he was early on this season. And we're not going to know until, hell, we're sitting here this time next year, even further in the 2024 season. So it just makes this season look even more lost to me.
Yeah, it's too bad because, again, there was one goal this season. That was, to a certain extent, they found out that he is or he can be the guy. But it's such a small sample size. And the bottom line is we don't know how durable he's going to be. And obviously his shoulder should be in far better shape, but how about the rest of them? And they have to decide just how much of a running quarterback they want him to be.
Yeah, and that makes you wonder too. I thought that there was going to be no way that they would take some pages out of that running playbook, that RPO, keeper type of playbook that they have. But I don't know. The longer they have to think about this in the offseason, maybe the more. But see, part of the issue is that's not why you drafted him. And then you take away the value and the reason why you selected it number 4 overall in the first place.
Yeah, I think you can overreact. To me, it just makes sense to stick with the original plan, and if he just happens to be a guy who's injury prone, whatever that means, then he is, and he's not going to have a long career. But I don't think you take away what makes him potentially a really special quarterback. You don't say, hey, you're a pocket passer because we're afraid that you're going to get hurt, because you're just as likely, if not more likely, to get hurt if you're sitting back there in the pocket anyway.
If the Colts, Bob, lose in Carolina on Sunday, is that the bottom of the barrel, considering the coach on the other side is the guy that they fired this time last year?
Yeah. It would have been like losing to Carson. Well, it wouldn't have been like losing to Carson Wentz if Wentz had played in that Washington game last year. But, that's not good. We reached out. We were reached out through PR with the Colts, and they reached out to Carolina, and apparently, Frank is not interested in sharing his thoughts with the indie media.
Really?
So, yeah, and I don't think it has anything to do with the media. We were pretty nice to him. I just think he doesn't want to do anything. What's he going to talk about? He's just going to dance around the issue. So I think he feels like it's not worth anybody's effort. But it's too bad because I'd like to know his feelings.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I would think that he was really good about saying a lot and never really saying anything. He had that down pat. So to me, at the very least, if you give you guys that opportunity to talk with him, then you're not on here right now telling me that he decided not to give you guys that opportunity, which to me looks worse than we weren't going to say anything anyway, so it really didn't matter.
And let me just so I don't misstate it.
Okay.
I asked the PR from the Colts if he was speaking, and was told that they if I'm not misunderstanding, they went through the Panthers, and he was not accommodating on this issue. I hope I'm representing that correctly. If I'm not, I apologize. But either way, the bottom line is we're not going to have access to Frank this week, and that's too bad. And I wish I was going to Carolina, because I still owe the guy $20 for calling the Philly special against New England.
What would be the first question on your list if you were given the opportunity?
Two things. First, I would ask him, what role did Jim Irsay have in the decision to use Sam Ehlinger and to bench Matt Ryan? And what role did he have in the decision to fire you? That'd be the first thing on my list.
I guess what's funny about that is everybody around here knows what went down and how it went down. I don't know why it's a big deal now.
He wouldn't answer. He would.
Right.
He would. classy guy. He would dance around it, but yeah, everybody knows what happened. I mean, Ellinger was mandated by the owner, and the owner decided that Jeff Saturday was a really good idea.
How's this season compare to last? Last was a clown show. This has just been a
bore.
What? A bore?
Bore.
Yeah.
Yeah, a bit of. I mean, the games have been interesting. They've been competitive. I think they've played hard. But yeah, last year was just you needed Calliope, Calliope music or whatever it's called going on. I mean, it was a clown show. This year is a little more mainstream, but it's no more. It's not any more interesting. I mean, last year was interesting in a bad way, but it was interesting.
So Bob Kravitz, musings of an old sports writer. Bob Kravitz, you can find him at B Kravitz and, of course, Substack.com/@Bob Kravitz for his work. Joins us on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I'll get to what happened on the floor. Last night was a major malfunction from Rick. That was a TJ McConnell night last night, and he didn't call him off the bench. That was a major malfunction. But you were one that couldn't watch the game last night because of the major malfunction with Bally Sports and their app. And, Bob, I'm going to tell you this. Much worse than an October loss at home to Chicago was that fiasco from last night.
That was ridiculous. And from what I'm told, I mean, based on my Twitter, apparently it happened quite a few times last year.
Yes.
And, I mean, look, they're in financial distress and this and that. The Pacers need to get out of this relationship because it's killing them. It's absolutely killing them. You're losing an entire generation of fans. I mean, we saw this, the Chicago Blackhawks many years ago under Mr. Wirtz. They didn't show their games on local TV, and it destroyed the franchise. I mean, almost destroyed the franchise. It hurt them with an entire generation of kids coming up who loved hockey. And that's what's happening here in Indianapolis and really in other cities where Bally is in control and doing such a terrible job. I was genuinely pissed. Now, I'm glad the World Series was on, but I bought Bally's app so I could stay up with the Pacers, and I wasn't able to do that last night, and it was very, very frustrating.
It is damaging right now, more so last night than I think we even went through last year, because last night. And again, they didn't play well and lost at home to Chicago, that notwithstanding. But last night, there are going to be a lot of eyeballs introduced to a product that, to that point, was 2-0, and everybody had talked glowingly about and was excited about. And you're going to have a lot of new eyeballs for the first time on that. And to get turned away and then to receive no help whatsoever. And I know that that's a Bally problem, but ultimately everybody's going to blame the multi-million-dollar professional sports organization, and that's the Pacers, and that was a worse loss than what the Bulls gave them last night.
I agree. I mean, you're losing fans. You're actively turning them away. There's a lot of stuff going on right now with the Pacers that I find hard to understand, but. Yeah, I mean, you've got a good product. I agree with you. I thought they stuck with Nembhard way too long last night. I love the kid's game, but
me too.
Reading this morning or last night, what do you have, 6 turnovers, something like that? I definitely would have made the move to McConnell. But yeah, you're telling your fans you don't care about them, and it's too bad because there's a lot of good players and good guys in this team.
So the other thing, too, is you saw Billy Donovan, the Bulls, continuously put Tyrese Halliburton in a bad defensive situation, and I thought that affected the offensive situation on the other end. And I think you're going to see more and more teams try to do that, and make Tyrese Halliburton make defensive decisions, make the right one, and get down in the stance and play some.
Right, yeah, that's not something he's never going to be a great defensive player, but if he wants to take the next step in his development, that's something he's got to place a greater emphasis on. He just needs to be a better better defensive player and a better rebounder. He's a big guy, and he needs to be a better rebounder.
Hey, Bob, you did mention, and that didn't get past me, there's some other things going on that are hard to understand with the Pacers. What are we thinking about here?
Well, you know, I shouldn't have said anything. So let's just, I hate to do that, but
well, I mean, just is there anything you can bring? Because I'm unaware of anything. I mean, nothing you can kind of string us along with.
Yeah, all right, I'll tell you.
Okay,
'cause I don't care. I'm 63. What do I care? They've made some changes in their credentialing where they're really limiting certain people. They've been good to me, but it doesn't mean I can't fight for people that I work for colleagues. And there are some people who don't have access to all the games, don't have access to locker rooms, things like that, which makes sense if you're New York or Chicago or Los Angeles or Philadelphia. It makes zero sense in a market that just, where you're lucky to have 10 media people there on a weekday in the middle of December against the Charlotte Hornets. So that's something that I'm gonna fight about. So I just put my foot in my mouth. But what are you gonna do? Whose
decision? I mean, is that upper level decision?
I don't know. I'm still trying to find out.
Okay. That's fair.
I've got several different answers, and I don't know. I don't want to litigate it here on radio like I already have. But yeah, I mean, yeah, you're the Indiana Pacers. You should want as much coverage as you can get. And they are actively dissuading people from covering their team, which makes zero sense to me. So I fully expect a phone call here soon.
The most that you can, and also the easiest possible avenue to be able to embrace their product. That's the other thing. I mean, you've got to make sure those are all in line. And Bob, listen, I've been through that here. And I know that like AM radio is old and done or whatever, but I want every conceivable angle to make sure I can bring in everybody. That's why I talk about, the stream, the app, the lounge via YouTube Live, HD radio, all that stuff. I mention that every day because I want to make it easy as hell. And the Pacers are making it difficult for anybody to consume their product. And there are way too many damn options out there other than professional sports or Pacers basketball. And people will gravitate to that, and they will gravitate to whatever is easiest to get to.
Absolutely. You said it better than I could have. I mean, you've got a good product. You should be proud of it. It's an all-star year. This should be a big deal. This should be important to people. And it's not, and I remember how it was when I got here in 2000. They're just coming off the NBA Finals year. And really, I mean, it was a Pacers town more than it was a Colts town when I got here. And, the way that's changed, and I don't see them doing anything to help themselves in terms of access to their product.
I'll tell you, this town...
Thanks for getting me in trouble, man. I appreciate it.
Just blame it on me. Just blame it on me. I mean, I was going to bring this up too, but I mean, hell, I think I asked to get somebody on 3 weeks ago, and I haven't heard a peep. So, all right, well, so whatever.
Get in line.
So, we'll both get each other in trouble. I felt compelled to join you in the boat of trouble this afternoon. On this Halloween.
Well,
Start paddling. I'm going to start paddling. Hey, what are you writing about, buddy?
Well, I'm going to do a mailbag, which is always fun, and I think I'm going to get into what's left to pay attention to with the Indianapolis Colts. I think there are a couple of things that are still interesting about this team. Not a ton. Certainly not the quarterback situation, but I think we're still going to learn a lot about some individual people, whether it's coaches or players, moving forward.
Remember the Jack Nicholson line in the original Batman in 1989, and he mentioned how this town, in a quote, needs an enema. This town in Central Indiana, the state of Indiana really needs a winner because we have all become very schlep-rockish in terms of easily accepting and moving on to losing. That's where we are right now.
I know. It occurs to me that schlep-rockish sounds like a Yiddish word that my mom used to use.
Yeah, Sleprock was a character on the Flintstones, like an offshoot of the Flintstones.
Him.
Yeah, he had the cloud and the rain cloud over his head all the time. And I've always used that to describe me being a Reds fan, being very Sleprock with a cloud over my head. But no, this is how, because we so easily, like, we got people moving on and talking about, day 3 or late round draft picks on Halloween or before Halloween or who to draft or how you got to get Marvin Harrison Jr. We have become, like these teams have presented to us, losers and accepting of losing.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it's the Colts did nothing today. The Pacers, I like a lot of what they've done. A lot of what they've done, and I think they're going to be a good team. I just wish I could see them on TV.
I tried really hard in that description of what we have become not to steal the lyrics from the Beck song "Loser" right there. Really hard. Did you notice?
Loser, baby. So why don't you kill me?
You can find Bob Kravitz's work in a brand new logo, by the way, that I think is going to be redone again, but it looks really good. I thought immediately of Oscar Madison right there. That's well done.
Perfect.
Musings of an Old Sports Writer with Bob Kravitz, substack.com/@BobKravitz. Have an outstanding Halloween, and here's hoping you don't get a lot of kids and you get to digest all that candy on your own, brother. Go for it.
Oh, that'll be great. That's what I need. Thank you.
Take it easy, buddy.
See you, boys.
It's Bob Kravitz, substack.com/BobKravitz. All right, I got a quick question. We don't have a lot of time, like final 30 minutes. And this is just me thinking out loud to you. Did I just portray all of us in a very over-dramatic fashion in terms of the acceptance of losing? Or do you think that was more accurate than how I actually described it? Because I'm a part of it too. Because I end up moving on and talking about further down the road and all this stuff. It just seems like now that we accept now these half seasons of, well, you know what, things are going down the toilet and we stink. This town, and rightly so. I mean, you can bring in the collegiate teams. Now, you didn't talk about that in terms of Butler. And I know that Matt wins at a high level during the regular season, but they got to get over that hump in the postseason. And, I know everybody loves Mike Woodson and IU, but there's no doubt that they have a great deal to prove. It just kind of like we've become very slep-rockish in that attitude. Was that rightly described or a very big, over-dramatic, over-exaggeration? I ask you that coming up on the other side. Tracksides tonight at 7. World Series Game 4 joined in progress in Arizona, Chase Field. 2-1, that best of 7, Game 4 joined in progress tonight on this Halloween night at 9 o'clock. Shout out to you, Jeremiah. Jeremiah has chili with noodles in it. That just gave me a chili with noodles arousal right there. That looks really good. I love my chili with noodles. Sue me. 93.5, 107.5.
The Ride with JMV.
This is Halloween, this is Halloween. Pumpkin scream in the dead of night.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
See, I never understood why this was a staple among the Halloween classic songs right here, other than the video.
I would say maybe the lyrics, but it doesn't give off the vibe of Halloween for sure.
Well, isn't there are a couple of songs about voyeurism, right? That including The Police.
Yeah.
Every breath you take, I'll be watching. Why is that not a horror song?
I mean, it really should be.
Instead of being a stalker song right there. Hey, welcome back. Happy Halloween to you, Bob Kravitz. Again, podcast 1075thefan.com. Brad Spielberger of PFF a little bit earlier gave you some numbers. Trade deadline day. Chris Ballard. I know a lot of you nerds out there are upset, but there was no trade of a good player that still could have a future here for a third-day draft selection that will be cut in July. I know that bums you out. You fantasy football wanting to talk mock drafts, mid-season nerds out there, but nope. Nothing done. We talked Pacers, coverage for the Pacers a little bit earlier, too. And Greg Rakestraw, the IHSAA is going to just streaming. And this was brought to my attention. I talked about this a little bit earlier with Greg. Starting this school year, live streaming through IHSAATV.org will be the only way to view IHSAA state finals broadcast, including football, boys and girls basketball, and this Saturday's volleyball state finals. I know that we all ultimately have to go down this path, but you have to keep a television option. This is a bad move. Bad move. Here's one of the reasons why. When you get down into the Class A, the 2A, you're talking about a lot of rural areas, of which where I grew up, for example. And this was brought to my attention. Another ridiculous decision by the IHSAA. So many of the biggest fans live in rural areas without adequate high-speed internet. One more thing to log on to with a password and to pay for. And by the way, you do got to pay for this. No thanks. And maybe they've been trying to ease the viewing public in the state of Indiana into this for a while, but all of a sudden, 3 weeks away from the football state finals and you dropping this thing on everybody, that's not going to make anybody happy. This is a bad move. Bad. Again, give people an easy, everybody involved option. Just give it to them. You're trying to force this square peg down a round hole to make some money. That's good. You can keep that. Maybe one of these days it will be all that. And obviously that's where you're hedging. That's where you're going with this decision. But man, somebody's going to have to prove it to me how great this decision is, because it looks incredibly faulty to me. And you're absolutely right about the rural areas. There are more rural areas there are with really slow internet than there are high speed around here, for example. And then sometimes that's jacked up. Not a good move. Yeah, we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong, and I'll own it if I'm wrong. I just think of moves. This is not a good one. Brad's at 239-1070. Hello, Brad.
Yes, sir. Thanks for taking my call, man.
Yes, sir.
I just want to say regarding Ballard, I'm done with him, and I'll elaborate, but I'll keep it quick. He cannot evaluate talent at corner or pass rusher. He just can't. It's been proven over 7 years. The fact that Young went to the Niners for a third rounder either tells me he didn't make the call, or he made the call, and when they told Young, hey, you want to go to the Colts, he said no thanks. And then he wanted to go to a contender. He went to the Niners. I know that Jalen Johnson from the Bears was rumored to have a high asking price. I don't know if we were willing to give that up, but I think Ballard is just now content with mediocrity. The question is Irsay okay with that long term?
He's okay with that right now, and evidently he is okay with it in the future. Thank you for the call, Brad, because you're going to have another couple of years to prove. And I don't believe any of that was out there. I don't believe any name recognizable player was any sort of option for them. But no, you're right from this aspect. He's more than willing to sit there and do absolutely nothing, which is what they did. Ben in Greenwood says, what is a rural area? It is I've said this before, I can't stay rural. All right? I stay very far away from it. I've always said this, downstairs, Matt Baer is one of the greatest traffic dudes of all time. And if I had to do the traffic, anything happened near Keystone and rural, I would be screwed. I cannot say it. Cannot say it. That brings me back to JMV 88. That's why. Jim's up next at 239-1070. Jim, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks a lot. Happy Halloween.
Right back at you.
Can't hear you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Again, so I was going to talk about the radio broadcast. I watched it last night, or I didn't watch it. I listened to it, and it reminded me of the days in the old ABA Pacers. My dad and I had season tickets. We'd go to every home game, but I'd always listen to Jerry Baker on the radio, and I just wanted to say those guys last night made it feel like I was there. I was almost like I was watching TV.
Oh, the radio broadcast, yeah.
Yeah. Coat hanger back on the door for a basketball hoop. I used to do that when I was listening to games. But anyway,
the radio broadcast is good, and I always want everybody, Jim, to listen to the radio, but felt compelled to address the television situation and the coverage or lack thereof last night and the problems they had with Bally Sports, because that is important to everybody that tunes into this show, and also should be very important to the Pacers, because last night was much larger of a loss than just losing to the Bulls.
Yeah, well,
yep.
And I agree with you. And then, but I want to. I put chili in my chili. I put small, thin spaghetti noodles, and I break them up in about 1-2 inch pieces, and put them. And that's why I like my chili. So,
my man, Jim, I appreciate you. Noodles are great. Don't give me that goulash crapola. Well, you're just a hillbilly. Yeah, really, no blank. Where'd you get that indication? Me trying to pronounce rural? Elbow macaroni in your chili and make it turkey chili with big chunks of turkey burger in there. Uh-oh. Hold on a minute. James, don't look. Maybe a little bit of unforeseen, unanticipated excitement going over here on this side of the board. Don't be looking. Bill's up next. Hello, Bill.
Hey, JMV, what kind of onions do you prefer to put in your chili?
You know what? I don't dig on onions. I probably wouldn't do it. Here's what I would do. I'd get the tomato sauce in there. I'd throw some big old fat kidney beans in there, Billy, and then I would put big chunks of turkey burger with some elbow macaroni, and I'm going to live a great life. That's what I would do. That's my chili.
I'm in on that, man. Hey, it kind of nostalgic.
I'd have gas for 3 weeks, but that's okay.
Yeah. I'm just nostalgic about today and Monday Night Football, because the Eric Dickerson game back in the 80s was probably one of the greatest. It was definitely the best performance in Indianapolis Colts franchise history. And there's a lot of players I didn't see before that and everything, but that game was incredible. But the one thing that was really outstanding was all the costumes that were in the crowd.
Yep.
I mean, at least one out of every four people that were in attendance, they had costumes on, and it was just in Denver, whom had, I think, lost 2 of 3 Super Bowls and everything preceding the game here on Monday Night Football, just didn't have a chance. Elway just did not have a chance, and that was a really, really good team. But the one thing I want to point out or share with everybody is, if you get a chance to YouTube the catch and run that Billy Brooks made in that game, because he had a touchdown pass where he was surrounded by 4 Broncos and everything, and he got into the end zone untouched from about 50 yards out. And if you get a chance to check that out, that's a good watch. But
do you think, hey Billy, do you think anybody? By the way, that was Halloween night back in 1988, with Eric Dickerson 4 touchdowns. The Colts beat the Broncos on Monday Night Football, or as Frank Gifford, the late great Frank Gifford, would say, Monday Night Football, 55-23. You think anybody has? They made masks of those in the booth on Monday Night Football. Do you think anybody still has those?
Oh, somebody does.
Or one.
I know enough pack rats and everything. Heck, you see some of the memorabilia I have. So
yeah,
I bet you somebody does have that. But just a tremendous game, and that it really kind of put that game kind of put Indianapolis on the map, as I recall.
It did
back in the '80s, because it was still close enough to the original move, and we hadn't really gained any notoriety yet, and that got us started. And then there was the era of Peyton, and let's just hope we're better this year.
Well, there were some bumps in between, for sure. Some bumpy seasons, a bumpy ride in between. But no, that was the first hellaciously awesome Colts game / night on Monday Night Football, certainly, that we ever saw. It was certainly one of those defining, one of those niche moments of all time with this organization here in Indy.
I think if I'm not mistaken, maybe somebody else can remember this and everything, but I think they either ran out of beer, or that was when you could get unlimited beers, even though they cost still $7 back then.
Right.
But yeah, that was a raucous crowd, man.
I got to thank you, Bill, and I'll see you on Thursday at Coach's Tavern, by the way, brother. Thank you very much. Does anybody still have the Monday night booth personalities masks? They were cardboard cutout masks. Anybody that attended that game still have it? I think Mellencamp was at the game. You think Mellencamp has his?
Could have it.
Somebody called Mellencamp. See, IndyCar Complainer says, I still have my Al Michaels mask from the Halloween game. When I get home, I'll dig it out and post it. Well done, IndyCar Complainer. Yeah, Mellencamp was there. What was that, 88? What album? Was that Big Daddy? In 1988? From Mellencamp? Could you get Mellencamp on the show?
I can ask.
And he'd tell you just go straight to where.
Probably.
What was 1988, the album? I believe in December.
Big Daddy was released in 1989.
89. So what album were we talking about? What was the previous album?
Previous album was 1987, The Lonesome Jubilee.
Lonesome Jubilee. Yeah, Lonesome Jubilee, that's where he's sitting at the bar in Jackson County next to that old farmer, I believe. Is that the album cover right there? Lonesome Jubilee?
That's what it looks like.
Well done right there. All right, IndyCar Complainers got a mask. Dig that out and post it, man. I'll retweet that a little bit later on. Quick break and we'll come back. Final time. Winschuler Spreadable Cheeses. Variety of flavors. Great for your party or tailgate, and the official sponsor inside the lounge via YouTube Live every single day. Winschuler's Cheeses. Winschulers.com today. Back with you. Final time next.
7 a.m. on The Fan.
The Ride with JMV.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right. I had to draw a line with a stinking doll getting the best of you here. Come on. Bad enough when you were at Camp Crystal Lake, you couldn't do one of two things really to escape. Just like run down the road as fast as you can. Or I always felt, especially when you're trying to get away from some old grandma in the first one, wearing a sweater and offing everybody, but get up on the roof. Get up on the roof. Nobody ever gets up on the roof. Get up on the roof.
I will say, at least with the ones after the first one, Jason does kind of like teleport around, kind of.
Teleport.
I mean, they only ever show him slowly walking, and then he just shows up where the person's running to.
Can you believe all those camp counselors at Crystal Lake in 1980 got off by some old grandma that was pissed off wearing a sweater? It's incredible to me. Can you imagine somebody's grandma running around out there?
The first Friday the 13th isn't the best of horror movies.
The counselors were making love and not paying attention. My Jason needed attention. That light just went on out. Did you see that? That's weird.
Spooky.
Todd turned that on? It's very spooky right there. Dave at 239-1070. Join the show.
JMV, thanks for taking my call. It's Dave in Kokomo.
Dave, are you getting pulled over right now? Hot sauce sounds like it's being poured all over you.
No, that was the ambulance going the other way. Thank you.
Gotcha, buddy. Go ahead, Dave.
Happy Halloween to you.
Right back at you.
That 88 Halloween game, was that not the game where Pat Beach almost ran back the onside kick?
I would have to think about that for a moment. I'm not sure. Somebody could probably tell me. I don't recollect that as much as I do, I guess, other aspects of it. You might be right, though.
Well, Pat Beach is tight end and he's playing special teams.
Yeah.
And, they almost ran him out of the joint because he got tackled by a linebacker or something about 10 yards from scoring a touchdown.
He was a consistent guest, I believe, every Monday on the Bob and Tom show back then, too, right?
Yeah.
Pat Beach?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
he was.
I believe, too, as the story goes, I'm glad you brought this up, Dave, our late great friend Robin Miller, who was the old scout back in the day in the Indy Star, used to purposely write stuff about Pat Beach, and Pat Beach would go crazy in the locker room trying to find out who it was, and never evidently, as a player, found out that it was actually Robin Miller.
I saw Pat Beach play basketball with the Colts traveling basketball team back in the day also.
Dave, man, have a great Halloween in Kokomo. Thank you.
Thank you.
You got it, buddy. Big Earn, I got to go here. I want to wish you a happy Halloween. You call back tomorrow. We'll get you on here right away.
All right, thanks, sir.
Have a great Halloween, Big Earn. Macho Mike, I got to go. Call back tomorrow. We'll talk to you. Have a great Halloween.
You too.
My brother, Macho Mike, right there. James, have a great Halloween. Halloween, the original, John Carpenter Classic 1978 on at 7 o'clock on AMC. Let's all watch this together. Seriously, have a great, safe Halloween with you and your family back here tomorrow on a glorious Wednesday. I promise you that. Thanks for being a great audience this afternoon and participants. We'll do it again tomorrow at 3, 93.5 and 107.5.